The girl looks very much like a man and seems to have checked almost all the information. She went off to find out that the second son of the ducal family of Telem was at the party, enjoying the last bit of freedom before her inevitable marriage. Inappropriate aristocratic pastimes. Great article. The girl was distracted from thinking about where his wife was by strange sounds. It was a very familiar voice. It came from the next room. A man named Roland is having fun with some woman. The main character begins to worry a lot. Her hands start shaking, which makes the glasses unstable. Eventually, they fall and break, spilling all their contents. The girl runs forward as if in the darkness. She does not understand why these people are together. How? The main character grows long hair and wears a beautiful dress decorated with diamonds. She is enveloped in magic, but the tears never leave her eyes. Rebel Ivella is the lady of the Viscounty of Ivella, a woman of incredible beauty. She has the ability to change her appearance beyond recognition and uses this ability to work as a reporter under the pseudonym Belle. How did this noble person begin to lead a double life? Viscount Ivella had squandered his entire fortune on gambling, which is what had led to her current situation. Roland is her only ray of hope in this life, her wonderful, gentle fiancé. The girl believed with all her heart that marriage with him would bring her happiness. But how wrong she was. The moment this whirlpool of life caught up with her, everything turned upside down. The events take place in a secret bar. The main character is offered to take a cocktail, Night of Ladies Oblivion. The bartender assures that one sip and all your sorrows will disappear. But then, in an instant, the glass and more than one turned out to be empty, and the man decided not to interfere anymore. Rebel looks at her reflection. It doesn't help, and the tears continue to flow. She stands up. In front, near the bar, sits a man who attracts attention with his appearance. The girl asks to pour something stronger so that she can completely forget about this night. Since she is quite drunk, she involuntarily bumps into the man sitting next to her. She can't keep her balance and falls backwards. The main character prepared herself for her fate and closed her eyes. But when she opens her eyelids, she sees before her a handsome man with golden hair and sky-blue eyes. Rebel was caught. She looks very surprised. What an awkward situation. The girl's stomach is blooming, but it would be impolite to remain silent, so she thanks the young man. It was so elegant, but he didn't even ask how she was feeling, how cold it was. The lady starts a conversation, apologizing for disturbing, but adds that from today on she is a free bird. It turned out that her man was cheating on her with another woman. This is where she's come down. She sits and cries to a stranger, but he has an interesting reaction. Laughter? Rebel found this funny, so she continued. Absurd situation, isn't it? It's hard to believe that such men actually exist. The young man simply nods in response. He really is a good listener. Since it comes down to it, the main character declares that she will also date another man. When she tries to marry her, the stranger's eyes fall open in shock. Some kind of energy begins to accumulate around their hand. It seems to be circling. As the magic slowly dissipates, a gust of wind or something similar to a shockwave is created. The man smiles slyly and asks again, "Marriage?" His eyes sparkle and he agrees to the drunk woman's proposal. The events take place the next day at the main character's estate. The girl has a splitting headache. The last thing she remembers is going to a secret bar. The only question that remains is how did she get home? But in any case, it's worth checking the news. At first glance, the newspaper seemed to have nothing interesting in it. But when she got to a certain paragraph, she found something interesting. It was about her public humiliation and the lie about her engagement to Roland Dillon. All this was composed by a certain reporter Shu, previously unknown to the main character. Rebel crumples the paper in rage. And this nonsense is on the front page. What shamelessness, just to denigrate someone. Someone else is knocking on the door, which makes the girl's mood even worse. Who else would think of taking it out early in the morning? The main character received a letter from the Archduke, and he sent her a reply. Rebel simply threw it away, wondering what kind of marriage they were talking about. It was probably some kind of divorce. She had never seen this Archduke. If it were serious, he would have come in person. A few days later, she received another letter inviting her to the estate of that aristocrat. Here, the main character was stunned. Could that proposal really have been? The knight of the Archduchy was ordered to escort the young lady. A carriage decorated with gold had already been prepared in the yard. Having sat there, the girl's face did not change. She continued to look at the sheet of paper. White horses are quite rare and expensive, so only a few can afford them. So many questions have accumulated. A wedding? An Archduke? How could this even happen? Rebel's face darkened. This simply couldn't be anyone but Duke Duranta. After meeting him, she'll lose her head. Non-romantic fantasy is a world where true love does not exist. The main character of the novel, Archduke Sistine von der Ranta, fell in love with Countess Yuri. But the lack of any lust for power on his part disappointed the young lady. So she married the greedy Duke of Fillet. Having deceived the Archduke, the two of them later rebelled. Where is the romance in this whole story? This ending is no good. Overcome by betrayal, Sistine, in a rage, kills Yuri with his own hands and successfully suppresses the rebellion. At that point, it wasn't a sweet love story, it was a horrible, unromantic fantasy. The story ended in pure bloodshed. Nothing good happened. In the original, Rebel is just one of the minor characters who died at his hands. She was killed for her part in the rebellion, but she got on the Duke's nerves in another way. As strange as it may be, she was caught spying on the Duke. And the Archduke, already embittered by the uprising, mercilessly killed the girl. That's why the main character made herself a survival guide, where the first point was to never get involved with this person under any circumstances. They arrived at their destination, a luxurious castle. Rebel steps out of the carriage with the thought that she is not going to die in vain. All the servants gathered around her and greeted her as the new Archduchess. The main character stands in a stupor. How did everything turn out like this? One of the maids kindly shows her the way to her chambers. Until his lordship's revenge arrives, the girl can stay here. The noble lady comes inside and is surprised. She looks around. Wow, a huge mansion and a bunch of well-trained servants. Luxurious furniture is placed everywhere and chic paintings hang on the walls. She had indeed entered the lion's den, or rather the Archduke's family. Rebel tries to calm down. Even in such a place, you can survive if you don't lose heart. There must have been some misunderstanding. We just need to talk and break off the engagement. Here comes His Serene Highness, the Archduke, the very man from the tavern. The main character also bows according to etiquette and greets the man. The young man says that she doesn't have to bow. He carefully lifts the girl's head to see her face. Sistine says he is very happy to finally meet his fiancée. There are cookies and freshly brewed tea on the table. The first thing they do is introduce themselves to each other by calling each other by name. The main character looks at her mug in confusion. In the novel, he was described as having luxurious blonde hair, the very embodiment of the nobility of the imperial family. A calm and collected man with piercing blue eyes, just one look at him would win anyone's heart. This is indeed a very accurate description. This man is terribly handsome. Nothing will happen if she just marries him, right? But the girl throws these thoughts aside and pulls herself together, putting the cup back in place. When she says that there must have been some kind of mistake, the man's face changes. The Archduke replies that he does not think so. She is definitely Lady Rebel. Then the main character thinks that it is worth saying directly and mentioning the article. The lady apologizes in advance for her rudeness, but he doesn't intend to continue the Durant line. The young man agrees, but no one supported him from the very beginning. There are no obstacles to marriage. Is he really that serious about this engagement that he's willing to give up on his previous plans? There was nothing between them, was there? Sistine asks if she doesn't want to become an archduchess. The main character clenches her hands into fists and mumbles something under her breath. The man says that she proposed to him herself. All that was left was to sign an official marriage contract. That evening, the girl promised him that if they spent the night together, she will stay with him until the end of her life, no matter what, and will love him more than anyone else. The lady looks stunned. What is he even talking about? The young man claims that she stole him the first time. The main character asks again, but it seems that it really was her initiative. If she needs evidence, it is there and it is not difficult to show. That night, besides her home, Rebel was only in that ill-fated bar. But no matter what happened that evening, the wedding was not going to happen. The girl covers her face with her hands. If she becomes an archduchess, her hobby will damage the family's reputation. With a serious face, the man asks, "Does this threaten the well-being of the empire? If this is not the case, then there is nothing to worry about. You can do what your heart desires." Well, something that threatens the well-being of the empire cannot be called a hobby. But the problem is that she was the author of the article questioning the Archduke's masculinity. The girl wrote this article not out of a whim, there were reasons for it. If she doesn't want to end up like in the novel, getting close to the Archduke is stupid. One day, she miscalculated the duration of the transformation. And of all the possible people, it was the editor-in-chief who noticed her. He said he would keep her identity a secret if she showed how sincere she was. The main character at that moment was very worried. What does he want from her? The editor-in-chief said she had to publish a sensational article. In those days, Rebel was always on edge. If it had been up to her, she would have done it long ago. The only truly worthwhile material now is the Archduke. Many young ladies dreamed of marrying this man. striving for love and power. But there were many who thirsted for revenge, and there were so many absurd cases that they couldn't be counted. He then declared that he would never marry and would become the last Archduke in his family. If the man dies without marrying, the Durant family will cease to exist and its territory will pass to the imperial family. For a long time, the main character could not understand why this decision was made. It was not profitable. There must be some reason. Then she started investigating the matter and digging deeper. The man stops the cart and apologizes for keeping you waiting. He put a lot of effort into collecting so much. There are rumors among the people about the magical properties of this miracle herb, Raya grass. Due to its popularity, it is extremely difficult to find. Another man in a cloak hands over a bag of coins and says that the gentleman will also be grateful. At that moment, Rebel thought that she was on the territory of the Archduke, so this was Sistine Durant. He refuses to marry, but is looking for means to increase potency. This means that the Duke is simply unable to fulfill his marital duty to his wife, so he has no choice but to remain a bachelor forever. The editor is laughing heartily. This is going to be a great hit. He said he would take care of her secret and put the article on the front page. The news spread very quickly. Everyone and their dog was talking about this article. It became a sensation. And she, like reporter Belle, also became quite famous. The girl thought that if his lordship found out, she would be 1000% certain to avoid death. The events take place in our time. Sistine asks again about her hobby. Rebel understands that he is too experienced. She has no excuses left. Maybe she should pretend everything was okay and marry him? As an archduchess, she would live exactly the way she wanted. But what if this young man finds out the truth? His true nature will be revealed, and his face will become darker than a cloud. The girl will fall to her knees and beg for forgiveness, trying to justify herself. Then she will certainly be declared a criminal and punished for ridiculing the imperial family. The main character comes to her senses. No. Marriage with him is like a death sentence. She grabs her head and thinks over all the possible options. What should she do? The man stands up. It seems that the girl is uncomfortable talking about this, so he is not going to ask unnecessary questions. Sistine says that his bride is free to choose any occupation. Besides, she can do anything she wants. He gets down on one knee. Nothing will make him give up on the marriage. After all, he really needs her. What about that promise? The Archduke kisses the young lady's hand and asks her to stay with him. Well, all that remains is the official meeting of their families and the wedding ceremony. The main character turned completely red. She can no longer think normally. But she was distracted by an offer to visit Her Majesty the Dowager Empress. Rebel is even more shocked right now. It's already quite dark, and in addition, her dress is a little shabby. The man replies that it is not vintage, but just very worn-out clothes. He also adds that the main character looks great in anything. The young lady is speechless, and her face turns red as a tomato. The servants see the carriage off and wish the Archduke and Archduchess a safe journey. Rebel was speechless for a moment and simply followed the man. She was unable to call off the engagement, and meeting the Dowager Empress would only add fuel to the fire. It looks like the girl is really going a little crazy. When the city started talking about that article, something strange happened, and the editor-in-chief disappeared. Belle wondered when he would return from his indefinite leave, but they couldn't really explain anything to her. They just avoided the topic. The editor never returned, and judging by the man's reaction, someone had silenced him, and apparently it has something to do with the man sitting across from her. The characters arrived at their destination, an estate of incredible size. A noble woman is watching the carriage through the window. This is Her Majesty. She is informed that the Archduke has arrived and Lady Rebel with him. The woman approaches the table. Finally, she will meet this lady. There are reports on the investigation of Rebel Evala and reporter Belle. Inside the estate, everything sparkles. The walls are decorated with gold patterns, and the chandelier is covered in diamonds. Here the girl starts biting her nails. Maybe she should run away before it's too late? The young man notices this and asks if everything is okay with his bride. The lady replies that everything is fine and she is just a little nervous since she has never met the Dowager Empress before. After Sistine said that she was a good-natured person and there was nothing to worry about, Rebel became even more tense. Just remember the train versus the carriage, the experiments like, how many people can fit in the carriage? This woman has a rather curious hobby of testing the limits of human capabilities. And if her hobbies became boring, she turned the lives of those involved into a real hell. And even the most sincere prayers and requests could not grant these people mercy. With the help of her powerful intelligence, she tracks down traitors. The Empress knows no mercy when it comes to punishments. They are terrifying in their ferocity and mercilessness. To top it all off, she ordered that the lands where they hatched their plots be turned into wastelands. But when the woman appeared before the main character, she truly was like an angel. She was very glad to see the young man again, so much time had passed. She is a loving mother to her two sons, but only to the two of them. Finally, the Empress notices the main character standing nearby. The girl greets him according to etiquette, saying that she is incredibly glad to meet him. The woman glances at the young lady's trembling hands. It seems Rebel is afraid that she will find out the whole truth about her identity. The Empress wants to tease a little and see the reaction of this noble person. The girl was never told to stop bowing. How much longer will she have to stand like that? Finally, the main character was allowed to raise her head, and it gave me goosebumps. The woman says that her head is so heavy. The neck will immediately feel lighter if the extra weight is removed. The young lady's face darkens. Is her head really going to be cut off now? Here the Archduke intervenes and stops his mother. He says his fiancée is a little nervous and might not get the joke. Since this is their first meeting, it is better to do without teasing. The woman is delighted. It looks like this child will be able to excite her son. The Dowager Empress laughs out loud. She has been well amused. She apologizes, saying she just wanted to lighten the mood. Did it really do the opposite? Words cannot describe how happy the woman is to greet the Archduchess. What a blessing that Sistine has come to his senses. Well, now welcome to the palace, one of the most luxurious buildings in the empire. The Dowager Empress asks to be left alone with the lady for just a minute. There is no cause for concern. They will only exchange a few words. The young man turns to his bride, trying to assess the situation. The main character's face is covered in sweat, and her gaze begs, "Don't leave her alone." He doesn't have time to do anything before Rebel is already captured. So she found herself in the lair of a fierce and merciless beast. The Deuce is very tense and carefully watches the woman's movements. The Empress steps forward and offers to talk over a cup of tea. And at the end of the sentence, he adds, "Reporter Bell." Here the main character understands that she is finished. She knows everything for sure. The woman asks how she realized that her identity had been revealed. Rebel barely answers, hesitantly, that the editor-in-chief is missing in action. So she thought? True. Of course the Empress conducted an investigation after that article. That's why she was very surprised when she received a letter from Sistine, where marriage with her was mentioned. He still doesn't know anything. But after he read the news, he was so angry that there were several chairs less in the estate. After this information, the main character became gloomier than a thundercloud. What will they do with her now? What will happen next? Will they execute her? Or will they do the same thing as with traitors? Feed them to the sharks? But then the woman says that since she has already received approval, a meeting of the parents needs to be organized. Then the choice of wedding dress and the location of the wedding ceremony. Well, and then, directly, the wedding and a long family life. The girl doesn't understand that. Knowing who she really is, she won't be punished, but will be allowed to marry and become an archduchess. The Empress adds that this is not all. Not only will she keep everything a secret, but she will also reveal the truth about who reporter Shu really is. The man who wrote such a nasty article about her? Rebel had long wanted to know who it was, so she was glad. But there is no such thing as a free lunch. The woman has one small condition. Nothing complicated, and if she agrees, she promises to protect her from Sistine, even if he finds out everything. The main character is delighted. Will she really no longer have to fear for her own life? Here we will have to sit down, because there will be a long conversation about Sistina. There is a man with golden hair lying on the floor, and blood is pouring out of him. He reaches forward somewhere with a trembling hand and furious eyes. His brother stands in front of him, shaking from head to toe, shocked himself. We return to our time. Someone calls the young man. It's the maid. She shows him into the guest room. But the Archduke refuses and says that he will wait here. He had no intention of getting married at first. As long as his body was filled with magic, there was a high risk that something bad would happen, and his loved ones would suffer. Even if the circumstances were not taken into account, his brother still had his eyes on him even after taking the throne. That's why Sistine took a vow of celibacy. He didn't think he'd ever go back on his word. But then, out of the blue, that woman appeared and proposed marriage. And the unusual feeling that arose after the meeting only intensified as soon as their hands touched. The magic that was seething inside him and driving those around him crazy suddenly subsided for the first time. Rebel possesses a strange power and energy that calms Mana. The day he agreed, the main character was very happy. Then she took the young man by the hand and began to lead him along. The girl was a little out of her mind, but so cheerful and happy. Rebel opens the door with a bang and walks inside the room. She throws Sistine on the bed and realizes that he is not going to introduce himself first. In this case, the girl decides to take off her mask first and introduce herself. At that time, the man did not yet understand what he had gotten himself into and how it would turn out. He tried to leave because the young lady was very drunk, but the main character didn't let them do this because they decided to get married. She certainly won't let you pretend this never happened. Then everything started spinning. The Archduke followed Rebel Avella's lead. Before he took action, the young man asked her if she really wanted this. When the main character agreed, the first passionate kiss took place between them. Then she began to take off her dress, the straps slipping off her collarbones. As usually happens, the first wedding night passed quickly. But he will never forget that moment, that expression on his face and his voice. But what shocked me most was the name of another man spoken from her lips. In her dream, the girl cried and said that she would never forgive the bastard Roland. Then the man decided that this would be an exclusively political marriage with benefits for both. Back to the conversation. Rebel is surprised. Does the Archduke not show his feelings? The Empress confirms that he shows no joy or sorrow. He never talks about what he wants and simply does not express any desires even to his family. Did Sistine seem cold towards the girl? Here, the main character thinks a little about this question, after which he replies that he, of course, is not very emotional and is unlikely to be able to express his feelings at all. Although she understands, there were some moments where he was able to prove himself. In that case, the Empress thinks that with her everything is different since he sends her letters as soon as the sun rises. Be that as it may, the mother approved of their marriage as soon as she received the letter. She was so overwhelmed with joy that she wanted to share it with someone. For many years, Sistine expressed absolutely no desires. And then changes happened, and very serious ones. I remembered his childhood, where he spoke freely about what his heart desired. At those moments, he could cry, laugh, and enjoy life. The Dowager Empress takes the main character by the hands, so she asks her, be it love, tears, or even anger, anything. Awaken Sistine's emotions. Even though everything led to marriage, it was only one night. Although he said he wanted to marry her, there was no talk of deep feelings. So how could Rebel melt his heart? The girl decides to refuse. She is extremely grateful that they turned to her, a modest lady from a not very influential house. Although the reward is very tempting, she is sorry she will not be able to cope. Only Rebel forgot that no one dares to refuse the Empress. The only thing left is to speak directly. The girl says that even though she proposed, they don't have passionate feelings. Besides, she doesn't have the talent to evoke emotions in people. The woman puts the cup back. The young lady did well, so there is no need to be modest. She did say that the Archduke broke several chairs because of her. Since then, Sistine has shown some interest in the reporter Belle. Such open articles will also help to show emotions. The main character asks if the Empress really wants her to repeat the fate of the chairs from the Duke's estate. The woman promised to protect him. There's nothing to worry about. Besides, if she refuses, she'll regret it. Marrying the Archduke will allow the girl to escape from her past as a noble lady whose father lost his fortune in gambling and to bathe in luxury. The Empress will personally announce the name of the one who has become Archduchess. Everyone, without exception, will learn about her. The main character immediately understands who we are talking about. Roland. Rebel will have time to think about how she wants to carry out her revenge. But the woman would like to hear the answer to her request right now. It sounded like a threat. The girl understands that she is being asked about this for the last time. The thought process was activated. It was obvious that the benefits were much greater. That's why the main character agrees. You never know what they might do to her after she refuses. Here comes Sistine. The woman thanks him for calmly waiting for them. Now they need to arrange a meeting with Viscount Evil. The man takes out the invitation that Rebel personally handed to him 4 days ago. It is a small piece of paper folded several times. The Dowager Empress wanted to take a look at him. It says there that the girl cordially invites them to the estate today. The main character quietly asks when she managed to write this. The young man reminds that it happened in a secret bar and the invitation was written on the check. The girl is all gloomy, but Her Highness doesn't care. Who needs these formalities anyway? Well, the woman is not going to delay and wants to go right now. The sun has already begun to rise little by little, a new day. The Viscount is probably fast asleep in his crib. And there is no human food at all in the estate, only cobwebs on the empty windows. From Sistine's behavior, one can understand that in this family they clearly don't stand on ceremony with decisions. Rebel asks to reschedule for another day. They are not ready to receive guests, especially the imperial family. The Empress says that everything is fine. She is aware of the situation her family is in. This meeting will not be just a greeting, but rather a warning. The girl will soon become part of the imperial family. The Archduchess cannot live in such conditions. The best time to properly scold her father is to catch him off guard. These words make sense, because upon learning about the visit, he will definitely try to hide the whole truth. The Dowager Empress tightly squeezes the main character's hand. She happily pulls her along. We must prepare for departure. And again, the young man was left alone, waiting. They stop in front of a luxurious door decorated with gold. She needs to prove to the Viscount that she is no longer the same rebel she used to be. This is a dressing room. A woman is allowed to choose any dress that she likes. We move to the Viscount's unremarkable estate. An angry and sleepy father bursts into his daughter's room and screams that he is dying of hunger. But it's completely empty. Only the wind from the crack walks around the room. He is furious. His daughter still hasn't returned home. And what about the pride of an aristocrat? But then he remembers that the Archduke's carriage arrived for her yesterday. At that moment, he was watching from the window and was very shocked. Before that, he kept wondering what she did at night. Who would have thought that Rebel enjoyed secret dates with the Archduke? The Viscount thinks that if he is tied to the imperial family, he will bathe in luxury for the rest of his life. Is it time to reap the fruits of his efforts? But then his face suddenly changes and becomes frightened. The Archduke himself came to his house and brought Rebel with him. There was another carriage standing next to them, which made the uncle even more tense. This is the Dowager Empress. She was graceful and beautiful as always. Father is still in a stupor. He doesn't understand what's going on here. The Viscount kneels and greets the guests from the imperial family. The woman looks at him with obvious disdain, as if he were bio-waste. She passes by him and calls him a servant, dressed to the nines. The Empress enters the house and pretends to look for Viscount Evil. Rebel chuckles at this point. It is truly cruel. He immediately jumps up to clarify the misunderstanding. Sitting down at the table, everyone looks a little surprised, and the main character is completely gloomy. On the table lies a pasta dish with something resembling meatballs. The Viscount says that today there is less attention paid to food than usual. The woman puts down her fork. Another reason why they simply must have the wedding as soon as possible. Stars appear in the man's eyes. He only thinks about profit. The father gives his consent to the engagement of his daughter and the Archduke. There is no problem with that. He's just worried that Rebel might not be worthy of such a man. The Empress got angry. That was the last straw. He shouldn't worry about Rebel. The Viscount doesn't understand what we're talking about. Is there something else troubling Her Highness? That's exactly it. It's Viscount Ivel's behavior that worries her. The man became gloomy and began to tremble. What had he done wrong? The Empress raises her voice, perhaps because he has some bad hobbies. Of course, by hobby she means gambling. This is where our main character comes into play. She turns around abruptly. With all her anger, the girl begs him to quit gambling. He not only squandered his daughter's savings, but also the money that was allocated for food. And now that Rebel is part of the imperial family, they can't stay away. If he, the Viscount, does not express a desire to change, they will force him, only by force. The man swears out of fear that he will never go anywhere near a casino again. The main character is delighted by the majesty of the Dowager Empress. Her father never listened to her, no matter how much she begged. The last money for food. The poor girl could not do anything or resist in any way, but then everything was decided in the blink of an eye. Being an archduchess isn't so bad, isn't it? Since the conversation was over, it was time for Sistine to return to the order. The Viscount saw the young people off with his head down to the floor. In the original novel, the Archduke was indeed the commander-in-chief of the Order of Knights. Sistine works without rest or food, either meetings with aristocrats or endless chores. The real tin-can life of the Korean people. Rebel was very surprised when he said that he had eaten at the Viscount's house. That dish consisted of dry pasta, slightly rotten onions, and expired basil sauce. What should the main character say to the man who ate all this? Although she wasn't the one making the pasta, the feeling of shame still didn't go away, so the girl suggested packing lunch to go. The main character's charms didn't work, and the man simply refused. But then the Empress intervenes and insists that they share the meal anyway. Girls try their best to melt the heart of a young man. But Rebel was rejected once again. Sistine was forced to refuse. He had just had breakfast, but in a little while they could have lunch at the order. If the girl wants to meet, he will send a carriage for her at lunchtime. The carriage left, and the main character was dumbfounded and blushed with embarrassment. The woman even praised her. Little by little, she is able to fulfill the plan. It's time for the Empress to go too. She would have stayed longer, but she has things to do. The Viscount promised to give up gambling. Without their help, Rebel would not have coped. But the woman reminds that from now on, she is the Archduke's of this empire. It is worth remembering that the absence of Sistina or her next to her will not change this factor. You have to get used to power. No one will dare to look down on the main character anymore. The Empress turns around and thinks that the right time for the wedding is in a month. Preparations will begin immediately, and they will announce the wedding today. This will be much more fun and interesting. Reporter Belle must definitely cope. There is just one problem. News of her engagement to the Archduke has not yet been made public, and the woman wants the article published today. And if the girl does this, she will give herself away. The Empress is very interested in what she will do in such a situation. But if she doesn't want to do this, then we can entrust it to reporter Shu. The main character is in shock. What is the Dowager Empress talking about? The information about Shu is in Rebel's room, and a decision should only be made after she has studied it. The woman leaves and wishes the kids luck on their lunch date. The main character was left alone with a very difficult task. Now the girl felt like she was being threatened. She shouldn't ignore the Empress's words. In any case, first we need to find out who this reporter Shu is. But then her father stands in her way and wants to talk. When asked if this is related to forbidden games, the man nods in response. After this, the main character passes by. She has nothing to say. Angry father turns around and calls his daughter a brat. When the main character asks him to repeat it, he just bends over like a wimp. Rebel climbs the stairs and watches his father's reaction. She is happy. Finally, her life can really change for the better. It's really time to get used to power. No one will dare to offend her anymore. The main character opens the door to her room with a smile. She takes out a piece of paper from the envelope. Well, it's time to find out the true identity of reporter Shu. Reading the contents in the girl's eyes, a terrible rage appeared. She put the sheet on the table, thinking that this was some kind of madness. These people never cease to amaze her and haunt her all the time. After looking at all the hotel documents, the main character is even more shocked. It turns out she has 2 pseudonyms. The minor rumors are published by a certain reporter Melly, and the sensational stories belong to Shu. Articles so disgusting that they even needed a pseudonym. Such people tarnish the reputation of others. Although Rebel didn't want to read further, she saw another nasty article about herself. The main character's piercing scream echoed throughout the house. If Lady Venica wants to compete with her, the girl accepts the challenge. Rebel takes his weapon in his hands and begins to work. The main character wrote a wonderful response to the articles of reporter Shu. Her statement about the wedding is in. That should be enough for an exclusive scoop. But the interview itself doesn't mean much. You need to add the words of someone more authoritative. Rebel has a great idea. She's looking for someone. A man appears in front of her out of nowhere. The main character is delighted. It was really unexpected. The Empress said that as an Archduchess, she needed protection. And they picked out one of the best for her. A knight bodyguard known as Shadow. Rebel says he wants to go somewhere and asks for an escort. The man agrees, but there is no need to address him so respectfully. A simple knight is not worthy of so many formalities, but the girl is not used to being familiar. Although not very willingly, the main character has to make concessions. The carriage stopped near some large building. As the Archduchess had ordered, they arrived at the protocol department. All the protocols of the Empire are here. The girl did not think that she would come here for such a stupid reason. She has a lunch appointment, so she needs to finish everything quickly. But her thoughts are interrupted by a person. The man starts screaming. Even the nobility is forbidden to come here without permission. Who is she? At first, he did not believe that Rebel was the new Archduchess, but the official permission managed to shut his mouth. The man immediately apologized for his rudeness and bowed his head. Since rumors about the wedding have been spreading lately, the girl needs the help of the protocol department. The man says he will do anything for Her Highness the Archduchess. First, Rebel asks to take his photo and send it to reporters. This is how the main character managed to do everything before the deadline. The article may be short, but with an interview with a protocol department employee and photographs, anyone will believe that her wedding is somehow connected with the imperial family. All that remains is to send it, but the crew has already arrived and is waiting. Only if the girl wants the article to be published today, it must be delivered to the press agency immediately. The knight says that he will do it instead of her, and there is no need to worry. The main character goes and thanks the Shadow for his help. She walks down the stairs in a good mood, humming a song under her breath. But halfway there, she stops, as if she remembered something important. Since he himself offered to deliver the article, it means he knows that she is a reporter. Isn't this man just a bodyguard? The main character arrived at the high fortress, and the sun was tenderly warm, like a gentle kiss. All the knights were surprised by the carriage. Was anyone supposed to arrive today? Although people were not sure, it seemed that the carriage belonged to the Archduke's house. Rebel is not just a visitor, but the Archduchess herself. But it seems that no one here was notified of the young lady's arrival. The deputy commander-in-chief appears and asks to follow him. The girl looks around. Is this the Order of Knights? A real fortress. She thought that since Sistine had invited her here, everything should be luxurious, like in the residence. At the beginning, the main character thought, how delicious will it be? But when I heard that it was a canteen, I was very surprised and disappointed. And the knights, in turn, were very welcoming, cultured, and joyful. The Archduke also warns that they too should get in line. The lady has a very bad feeling, and will the food even be tasty? The main character has already lost all hope for a tasty dinner. But how surprised she was when she heard that today's menu included crab soup with chicken broth, Eastern dish, fried noodles with king prawns, and Western dish, lobster with spices. Rebel was delighted. Everything looked incredibly attractive and delicious. Sistine thanks the lady for coming here today. Did she enjoy the food? The girl admits that she has never eaten such delicious food in her life and asks to take some more with her. The happy protagonist continues her meal. The man exhales. It's good that she liked everything. But for some reason, his face becomes suddenly gloomy. He was getting ready to talk. Sistine wanted to discuss their future life together. Rebel stops. She almost chokes. She doesn't understand what has changed. Why such a sharp turn of events? The Archduke says that since their union is somewhat different from other noble couples, he cannot promise a honeymoon period. The girl imagines something like cute dates, catching up, and having lunch together. The main character asks not to worry about this. Everything is fine. The man raises his head a little hesitantly and asks, "Is it true?" Rebel replies that of course. The Archduke has a lot of work, and they can't stick to each other just because they are newlyweds. In addition, it would be problematic if they spent a lot of time together. It was unlikely that she would be able to work as a reporter. That's why the girl likes this outcome of events much more. The young man was even upset by such enthusiasm. It seems they don't even want to see him. Rebel tries to justify himself somehow. Even being a couple, they both need personal space. Sistine agrees that even after getting married, they should not limit each other's lives. He also adds that their nighttime events are an exception. The main character was so shocked by what she heard that she even choked. The girl lowers her voice and asks if he is really going to. The Archduke knows her story and she probably wants revenge on Roland. He's right, but in a conversation about their life together, phrases like, should slip in. Let's live happily ever after. Let's not cower in the face of difficulties and overcome them together. And he suggests taking advantage of their marriage to take revenge. Rebel refuses such an offer. She does not want to use the wedding for the sake of a bloody mess. Roland is now in the past. Revenge on such a vile man should not be more important than their future happiness. The man thought that she proposed only for this reason. Although this was the original plan, now everything has changed. Now it is more important for her to live a happy and luxurious life with the Archduke. This is most often what is expected from married life. That's why the main character wants him not to forget just one thing. Don't associate the words use and wedding. Rebel thinks that these are too cold words. Does His Highness agree? Then something clicks in the young man's head and an ominous flash of lightning appears. He places his hand on his heart and asks for one favor. The young man carefully takes the main character's hand. He wants the lady to call him simply by his first name, Sistine. It is already evening. The events are taking place in the estate of Viscount Evel. The girl is all red. She is thinking about what that sudden request was for. And that smile, could the Archduke really show emotion? Come to think of it, the Empress said that before, when he was still a child, he laughed and cried a lot. It's not that he can't express emotions, but rather that he simply suppresses them. What is the reason for this? The knight returned with a special edition of the evening newspaper. The article was published as an exclusive, and the newspaper is currently being distributed in the square and delivered to every home. So Venica probably saw her too. How will she answer? The events take place in the family estate of Alarog, where someone's screams can be heard. It's hard to believe that Rebel Ivala is getting married, but even the protocol department is involved, so it must be true. In that case, Reporter Shu's article will be a lie, and no one will believe her words anymore. Venica's publication that Rebel declared herself unmarried will destroy the entire reputation. Therefore, it is necessary to recall her now. The day has come. The main character laughs out loud. On the front page of the newspaper, there was an advertisement from the Layla boutique. Considering how quickly the ad was posted, Venica must have some connection to him. The main character was frightened by some voices outside the window. The Shadow Knight immediately burst into the room to tell something. Rebel went to the window to see what was going on there. A crowd of directors had gathered outside, asking to come out for a few words. Just one word from the lady and the knight can send them all away. The girl doesn't even understand why she's so tense. It's time to go have breakfast. If you don't pay attention to these people, then everything will somehow resolve itself. If she had not been the heroine of that article, she would have been standing there among them. As she walks down the stairs, she wishes good luck and patience to her colleagues. But suddenly, as if out of nowhere, Rebel caught a delightful, enchanting aroma. Following him, they found his source. There was a cook in the kitchen. At the beginning, the main character couldn't understand who this was, but it looks like it's that man from the order. Thanks to him, today's menu included light beef stew, salad, and cornbread. The knight explains that His Highness sent him here this morning, and also passed on a letter that could resolve all issues. It says that at the lady's request, the Archduke has sent a cook from the order. From now on, he will serve as her personal chef. Sistine hopes the food will be delicious. Was it possible that when she asked to take some with her, she was misunderstood a little? The dishes here are not funny. It looks like she will have to get used to this too. Well, it's time to sit down and eat, bon appetit, as they say. When the man is asked to join, he refuses, saying that he has already had breakfast. But the main character never saw him leave his post. When asked when, the knight looks away and replies that just recently. Rebel brings the juicy piece of meat closer and asks again, "Is it true?" But the sounds from his stomach give him away. They echo throughout the room. With a flushed face, the young man was forced to join in. Working on an empty stomach is bad for you, but did she even ask his name? All she knows about him is that he is close to the Empress. If so, then she has nothing to lose, so she asks the man what his name is. The knight introduces himself as number 109 of the special squad. At first, the main character didn't understand anything and continued to look questioningly. A number instead of a name? Who would even think of such a thing? Although if you remember the original story, such people really do exist. The novel mentioned the Empress's secret intelligence service, the Shadows. The widow's power and awareness comes from them. The Empress's confidants, who are assigned numbers instead of names. From childhood, they are trained to become invisible protection. Their main duties include espionage, surveillance, and execution. The work of these people is not as noble as that of knights, but they devote themselves entirely to it. They sincerely believe that this is the only way they can repay the Empress for taking them under her wing. It had been a long time since she had read the novel, so she remembered it only now. To prevent the truth about Rebel's identity from leaking out, Her Majesty sent him a shadow. The Empress ordered to keep an eye on the lady and ensure the successful completion of the task. To keep an eye on is, of course, a beautiful word, but in fact, it is surveillance. Well, the main character can't do anything about it, so she'll just be careful. When a girl suggests giving a man a name, he is very surprised. She can't call him by his number in public. It will be very strange and others will have questions. If such is Her Highness's wish, then she can call him whatever she pleases. There is a number 9 at the end of the number, so a great and simple option would be 9. The man says that he is satisfied with everything, which makes Rebel very happy. The main character extends her hand and says that although it is late, she is very pleased to meet you. How strange for a noble person, she wants to shake my hand and even offered to eat. He has no right to refuse and promises to serve faithfully and truly. So the evening has come, all the journalists are gradually leaving. The knight asks if the lady has any plans. But today she was going to sit at home all day. Then 9 suggests visiting His Highness the Archduke. The girl tries to politely refuse and find an excuse. They saw each other yesterday, and the remaining journalists might pester her. The man takes out his sword and says that in this case he will deal with everyone. Here Rebel asks to wait. The Empress ordered him to keep them together with the Duke, right? 9 turns away. It seems like it was a secret, but he was found out. The main character gets up. Well, there is no other choice. It's time to go. Sistine is back in the order. Now the events will take place there. The young man is not tempted to be the main character of the article. But it is clear that the Archduke cannot avoid this. The chaos will continue until their wedding, and possibly longer. The man feels some kind of energy, very similar to Rebel. He approaches the door to test his guess. And it turns out that she really is there. She just wanted to knock. The girl was in a stupor. Was Sistina really notified that she was coming? But if he didn't even have a clue, then how did he know? The young man, looking innocently, calmly replies that he simply followed his feelings. Is he really flirting? You can't tell right away from his expression. Rebel arrived just in time. The man was on a break. He was reading an exclusive edition of the newspaper. It turned out to be yesterday's article, written by the main character. He doesn't read newspapers very often, but he is interested in the publications of reporter Bell. After these words, the girl immediately darkened and her heart sank into her heels. The young man, not knowing the identity of the bride, suggests reading the article together. The girl tries to pretend that she doesn't know anything. She herself was so surprised when she was asked for an interview. Sistine says he really is an outstanding reporter, especially when it comes to him. Rebel is very worried because the article doesn't mention a name. It's unlikely that he knows who the real groom is. But the Archduke doesn't think so. Considering that even the protocol department is involved, he was able to get there thanks to his name. The fashionable person asks if she has seen this man. What is he like? Horror appeared in the main character's eyes, and she blurted out that she had never seen him. But the man insists. She gave an interview, and even a brief description will be enough. But Rebel can't say anything because she herself is a reporter for Belle. The girl is trying to collect her thoughts. She just needs to confuse his mind and change the subject. She says that the man came in a cloak because, given the nature of the profession, it would be unwise to show his face. It's a pure lie, but she has no other choice. It seemed that Sistine believed that this could really happen. Now is the time to change the subject and liven up the conversation a little. Rebel asks with a smile, is it okay that she gave the interview without him? The main character realizes everything only now she is finished. She allowed the article to be published without consulting Sistine, but this conversation still couldn't be avoided. The girl apologizes they haven't announced the wedding yet, and she went and gave an interview. Although she did not mention his name due to the intervention of the protocol department, all suspicions naturally fell on the Archduke. Rebel thinks he will be angry, and she has only just begun to get closer to this man. The young man surprisingly says that there is no need for an apology. She is not obliged to consult with him on all issues, much less worry about his feelings and opinions. The main character asks again what he means. To do as she wants and that's it? He did say that the girl could use their marriage as she wanted and there was nothing to worry about. Since he uses it for his own benefit, it is worth doing the same in return. Here Rebel wondered what it could be used for at all. Although she has the title of lady, she has no influence, no fortune, no special skills. All she can offer is to shield him from annoying talk about marriage. The main character says that she doesn't know how she can be useful, but she suddenly takes the young man by the hand. He doesn't even have time to react. The girl promises to help in any way she can, but will expect the same in return. From now on, they are a married couple and must lean on each other's shoulders. Is Sistine really going to insist that they are just tools for each other? Wouldn't it be better to replace the word use with help? That would be much better. A blush appeared on the young man's cheeks and his heart began to beat faster. Rebel also reminds that she asked him not to use that word anymore. Or was he lying when he said he would be more careful? The Archduke, all red, sat down in his chair and thought, she calms his magic and he helps him take revenge. This marriage must be based on mutual interests. In such relationships, it is best to draw some lines. But this girl refuses revenge and says that it is more important for her to live happily together. Why hope for something that is not meant to happen? So it cannot be said that he lied. If she doesn't like the word so much, he will change it and act more carefully in the future. Rebel glares at the Archduke and still insists on staying there so that they can further consult together on all important issues. I wonder if she'll continue to insist on her own once she finds out how he's really using her. Night fell and the main character finally left the building. Nine had been waiting outside all this time and, seeing the lady, asked how she had spent her time. Even though she is completely drained of energy, the girl replies that everything went just fine. It's time to return home, so the knight promises to see the lady off. On the way, the main character fell asleep. This day really turned out to be difficult. For some reason, Nine stopped. It seemed like there was some kind of obstacle ahead. This also woke up Rebel. It turned out to be a very familiar carriage. The carriage was quite elite and well lit. The door opens and out comes a bastard named Roland. Since it was the Viscount, it really would have been worth giving way. But the main character doesn't want to bend over backwards to her sworn enemy. Nine bows and says that she will fulfill any wish of Her Highness the Archduchess. The girl remembers her status, and here she is much more important than some Viscount. But the wedding has not yet been officially announced, and it is impossible to reveal the truth ahead of time. And yet, it is a matter of principle. Rebel is not going to give in despite the difference in status. When the man greets her, the girl replies that she is not at all happy about this meeting, and that just the sight of him makes her feel sick. Roland, hearing this insult, only smirked, after which he looked down and asked not to disgrace himself. He understands, of course, that she is upset and that things did not go as planned. But the man had no idea that his joke would be taken seriously. It was just a casual relationship, no need to be so stubborn. Rebel is not going to keep quiet. She didn't think that visiting every day and every night meant a no-strings-attached relationship. How then should people who want to get married behave? In secret from prying eyes in a salon? Roland's face immediately darkens. What kind of nonsense is she talking about? Here 9 is about to intervene. He has already drawn his sword from its sheath. Now the weapon is near the Viscount's neck. One more step, and it will be torn off. The main character grimaces and sticks out her tongue at the aristocrat. The man asks how a simple bodyguard of the Viscountess dares to raise a sword against him. Venica emerges from the carriage, terribly irritated and worried. What a terrible day. Everyone the main character can't stand has gathered in one place. The evil noble lady asks to stop all this and just give way. Roland can't understand what's going on. Is his fiancée hiding something? But putting his questions aside, he agrees that if that's what she wants, then so be it. The young man gives way, but only for Venica's sake. Rebel felt sick from such words. What a nasty couple. Before leaving, the man asks about one thing. Her wedding. The girl didn't take the other man's joke seriously, did she? He's worried that another victim of misunderstanding might appear. Venica was going to stop the stupid language of her future groom, but she didn't have time. Rebel answers with confidence that there is no reason to worry. After all, the protocol department itself confirmed her marriage. Roland reacted as if he had never heard of it. Because of this stupidity, the main character won and was able to humiliate these two. The man did not read the article, but learned everything only from rumors around him. But Venica, on the contrary, was aware of all the events and therefore became very angry. Roland tries to catch up with his bride, who was already heading towards the carriage. The main character and 9 also needed to act and return home as soon as possible. However, as planned, the Archduchess rode first. Rebel managed to keep her pride and see their twisted faces. But there was still some kind of lousy feeling left. Maybe it's because she saw that kiss. The girl noticed the couple again in the window. Roland was sitting next to Venica. The main character touches the window, but before he was her partner, just a week ago, that place was hers and nothing foreshadowed trouble. And she never doubted for a moment that she and Roland would have a happy future. It seemed to her that she would be the one sitting next to him in the carriage and dancing at the ball for the rest of her life. Who could have foreseen that some Venica would appear and take everything? But now that there is no turning back, Rebel has no regrets. The most important thing is that the rose-colored glasses have fallen off her nose. Besides, she met someone 100, no, even 1,000 times better. It will take time to get close to this wonderful person, but there is plenty of time. So the girl will definitely be able to become happy. So much so that she will forget about Roland. Rebel only regrets that she didn't throw something heavy at his head. 9 says she can do it for the mistress. He takes out his daggers and says that only one order is needed. But the main character stops him in time. The girl needs to watch her words. If she asks him the wrong way, he'll accidentally bring someone's head. The knight asks if she will really leave everything as it is. The main character, of course, wants revenge, but in her own way. The surest way to take down Roland is to expose the corruption of the Dillon family. She was good at it in her past life, and now, Rebel starts work the very next day. She puts a camera, a notebook, and a pen in her bag. She is wearing the most ordinary dress. Or rather, the clothes of common people. The girl looks at herself in the mirror, hoping that she hasn't forgotten anything. The last touch remains, the most important one, to change your appearance. At the moment when she moved to this world, she already knew the local language, and also received one very useful ability, transformation. You couldn't think of a better ability to combine the life of a noble lady and journalism. 9's voice is heard from behind the door, asking if the lady is ready. The main character turns around and says that she is already leaving. But here she stops, and how can she explain everything to the knight? Does he know about the abilities? The young man began to worry, trying to figure out whose voice he had just heard. The man starts knocking and calling Her Highness the Archduchess, but she doesn't hear anything in her thoughts. If he doesn't know anything, then it's better to keep the ability a secret for now and cancel the transformation. 9 turned pale. Did something happen? No one answered him, so he couldn't find a better solution than to knock down the doors. Rebel, all gloomy with surprise, said the man's name. Only Her Highness the Archduchess calls him that, and the puzzle began to come together. So the young man asked with slight surprise if she had reincarnated. Although he was aware of it, he had never seen anything like it before. The man fixed the doors and asked her what her plans were for today. First, the girl plans to visit the Dillons' property to investigate the workers. She often visited their territory when she met Roland. These were not ordinary workers. That's just what they were called. They also often interacted with Roland himself. Most of their conversations were about money and how much each person earned. These people often harassed and pressured the traders. When the girl asked who they were, Roland simply avoided answering. And this means that they are not workers in the true sense of the word. At that time, Rebel did not notice anything particularly suspicious because she was blinded by love. Huge amounts of money that appeared out of nowhere. Workers who look more like ordinary bandits. And Roland, who is somehow connected to this whole thing. Isn't that suspicious? The man agrees with the girl's words that corruption reeks from a mile away. He is also very surprised when he hears that Rebel is going to infiltrate their ranks. Who else could you trust with the investigation if not yourself? The young man looks a little depressed. The Archduchess is about to. But since this is the desire of the lady, the shadows, will be more vigilant. The main character asks again, "What? Shadows? Are there really several of them?" Nine waves his hand, signaling to his colleagues. Out of nowhere, 5 more men appear and greet Her Highness the Archduchess. Rebel is confused. Who are all these people? Have they really been here since the day of the Empress's visit? If you think about it, would the Empress really have assigned only one shadow to her? But despite this, there is a whole crowd here. 1 9 would be more than enough. The man replies that in the vast Dylan estates, he alone cannot cope in case of an emergency. Besides, he will have to drive the carriage. Her Highness, the Empress, has ordered that the lady's complete safety be ensured. Well, she's an Archduchess. If something happens to her, these people will be in trouble. 9 also adds that there is no need to worry about camouflage. They are not as good at it as the main character, but they still know how to do something. Rebel was delighted. They did it so quickly and efficiently. And the man also hands over some kind of bag from the Empress for the successful completion of the task. The main character unties the bow with interest. What's there? There are a lot of gold coins there, and they are all just for working expenses. And the woman also said that she was looking forward to her next article. The girl feels a little pressure, but since she has so much money, the plan can be adjusted. Before leaving, she told everyone about the improved Plan B. Events take place at the market in the Dillon's estate. The main character stands in the middle of a crowd with a cart full of apples. Rebel smiles slyly in anticipation. In a nutshell, she was going to become a traitor. This statement surprised the young people very much. The main character is very good at playing the roles of other people. At first, the Shadow Knights were against this idea, because according to the lady, the workers pester the merchants. The girl agrees that it may be dangerous, but that is exactly why she has to do it. If Rebel is disguised as an ordinary trader, the workers themselves will come and fall into the trap. You won't even have to ask everyone around, and it will be much easier to conduct interviews. Although the plan was indeed good, 9 was very worried. Well, first they need to get a fruit cart and a trading permit. 2 men volunteered to bring the cart to the Delen's property. 9 took on the trade permit, although not very willingly. And the main character herself will take care of the fruits, and they should meet at the appointed place. After some time, everything was completely ready to complete the task. Rebel thanks everyone, but they only reply that they followed orders. 9 asks what they should do while the lady is putting her plan into action. She asks to just stay nearby. If workers show up, she will give a signal. The main character shouts, "Fresh apples! Buy them, fresh apples!" The first buyer was a grandmother. Since the price was not expensive, she took 3 pieces. The girl thanked me for my purchase and wished me a good day, as is customary in trade. Rebel can't understand why sales are going so well. On the one hand, this is good, but an hour has already passed and there has not been a single sign of the workers. She can't just stand here and continue to mess around. It's worth taking matters into your own hands and going to talk to the merchants. The first thing she decides to do is talk to the man across from her. It's quite hot today, and she and I are here for the first time, so we wanted to meet someone. He, seeing the bunnies, reacted somehow strangely and not very hospitably. Afterwards, she approached some more people, but the reaction was the same. Rebel didn't expect this and didn't understand why they were behaving like this. Were they avoiding the stranger? If she wants to know something, then she needs to start a normal conversation, and so her prayers were heard. Hope lit up the main character's eyes. Finally, some progress. When asked if this is her first time here, Rebel replies that yes, she wanted to try her luck at a large market. The lady tries to warn that of all places, this is the worst. The girl asks again, "Why? Can't outsiders sell here?" The woman replies that before permission was indeed sufficient, but now a voice was heard from behind, and the lady immediately covered her mouth with her hand. The atmosphere in the market has changed and become more gloomy. Everyone around fell silent and tensed up so as not to get caught in the crossfire. The proverb immediately comes to mind. Remember the sun. Here is a ray. People say that in order to continue trading, you need to get permission from the person who controls the market. The events take place in the order, where the Archduke is most often located. There are 2 imperial flags hanging in the office, one large, the other a little smaller. Sistine has a lot of work to do, and he plans to deal with this stack of papers today. He is very focused because the wedding is just around the corner. In a month during the wedding, he will have to take a week off, so it is better to sort out all the matters in advance. Then the deputy suggests visiting the estates next week. The man wonders if the time has already come. His estate is located in the north, and he usually lives in his villa. Others think that he is leaving her in order to sort out things at home. But the real reason is the monsters that appear there. To prevent the magic from surging, he needs to use it periodically. And fighting is the most effective method. He used to go there every month before that woman showed up. The deputy is very surprised when the gentleman cancels the trip. This has never happened before. He asks if this has anything to do with Lady Avella. If so, then how long should the trip be postponed? But it only depends on how much closer Rebel gets to Sistine. So the best solution would be an indefinite period. The deputy is terribly surprised. And this is the Duke he knows? Putting off work to spend time with his bride? For everyone else, he is emotionless, but not in relation to the lady. The man even becomes a little lonely. Before leaving, he will ask later to tell him about the man who managed to win the master's heart. The young man was left alone with his thoughts. It is extremely difficult to describe Rebel in one word, especially given that recently. This person always says unexpected things and makes you show suppressed emotions. And indeed, it seems that she is slowly winning his heart. The main character was surrounded by men who started pestering her with questions about whether it was her cart. How timely they were. If they had arrived a few minutes later, she would have had time to come to an agreement with that woman. But she has no choice and will have to find out everything else on her own. The main character pretends to be the most innocent and stupid girl. The man explains that it is customary here to greet and reserve a place for yourself. If this is her first time at Dillon's Market, he will tell her about all the traditions of this place. The man points his finger at people, sometimes a gentleman, sometimes other traders. The price of protecting the market is the price of a place in the market. Now the girl understands what they were doing that time. Robbery. Hearing the price of 3 silver coins, Rebel's face darkened. This is 3 weeks' earnings of an ordinary citizen. And they demand such a price for a place at the market? In a week, they will come for 2 silver coins, and in another week, 1. Since everything is clear to her, the man takes the bag from the girl's hands. At the beginning, the main character is very worried because the Empress's money was there. But there were only apple scraps there, and 9 took the real ones. This immediately spoiled the young man's mood. Was she really joking? The main character became tense because now it could be dangerous. But the man just turned around and walked in the other direction. He reached the cart and pushed it. All the apples flew out, after which he said that anyone who violates traditions is unworthy of trading here. If she doesn't want more problems, she should shell out the money right now. Rebel managed to escape from these bandits. They hid in a small alley. The man heard one of the merchants muttering under her breath that this was just a nightmare, and the knights were doing nothing about it. But there is still one question left. If the patrol passes every day, how did it happen that the market ended up under the protection of robbers? Even the most inept knights are able to catch the scoundrels who operate in the same place every week. So it's very strange. Most likely, it's not that they are unable to catch them, but they do it on purpose. Just when I was thinking about it, that very patrol appeared. The bandits took the bags and began to flee the crime scene together. The main character notices this in time and also takes action. She orders the shadows to pursue these people. They wandered all the way to the forest, but at some point lost the trail. The girl stopped to catch her breath. She can't figure out where these scoundrels went, but one of the shadows found a clue. The main character looks out from behind a tree and hears a conversation. The knights and the robbers united. Today they earned 12 gold coins and 2 silver ones. Every now and then they still have to pretend to catch bandits for the reports. They all shared the profits among themselves, and the Dillons were also involved in this. This was a great opportunity for Rebel, so she immediately recorded everything. Now she had solid evidence for her article. It revealed the secret of Duke Roland's wealth, where he squeezes all the juices out of the estate's merchants. The more the girl digs under him, the more dirt comes to light. She is almost grateful that he betrayed her. As she finishes her work, she remembers Sistine. Rebel asks, 9, if the Archduke was warned that she would be away for some time? The man denies that only Her Majesty knew about everything. And then the main character's face darkened. She made a mistake. His fiancée left without saying anything. Rebel hopes he won't suspect anything. It is already evening, and events are once again taking place in the order of the Archduke. A breathless deputy runs into the office and addresses the gentleman. He came just in time. Sistine wanted to ask for something. The man asks to send someone to Rebel. He wants to meet tomorrow. The deputy replies that the problem is that they cannot find Lady Avella. The young man's hand twitches. It looks like he is worried. After the incident when the courtyard of Lady Evla's house was filled with reporters, they assigned knights. They reported that the lady had disappeared in the morning. The knights patrolled the entire area and learned that Rebel had failed only from the words of the count. There are some other people present on the estate, and they are not funny. The deputy adds that only some workers left it and no one suspicious was noticed. Sistine knows how to think clearly and therefore refuses to search. The Archduchess has shadows. If something happened to her, they would immediately contact the Empress. And since that didn't happen, everything must be fine. There's no need to search. But the man still asks to leave a message so that they can meet after her return. The deputy quickly left to carry out his duties, slamming the door. Still, the young man suspected something, because the situation was very strange. Rebel will attract attention wherever she goes, thanks to her eye color, hair color, and uncharacteristic behavior for an aristocrat. The knights sent to guard Ivel's estate are not just knights. They specialize in surveillance. They are the best at what they do. It is impossible that Rebel's departure went unnoticed. How is that possible? Evening was already gradually approaching, but the lanterns had not yet been lit. The girl stuck her head out a little, but it was dangerous because the carriage was moving very fast. The tired main character asks why they have been taking so long and are not home yet. She seems to be very nervous, so much so that she has dark circles under her eyes. Rebel is afraid that Sistine will not find her at home. What excuse can she come up with? 9 suggests simply saying she went out for a long walk. And there I met an old friend. So I started talking. The simpler the explanation, the better. But the girl was disappointed with this proposal. It was no good. Although he is right in some ways, if she starts telling everything in detail, she will only arouse suspicion. The main character still hopes that Sistine doesn't know anything yet. But I learned from the maid that his lordship had already sent someone. He also conveyed that he would like to meet after the lady returned. The girl had tears in her eyes. Why today? Rebel asks to say that he feels unwell and will come tomorrow after lunch. The maid refuses this request and says that this will not do. Besides the man sent by his lordship, Her Majesty the Dowager Empress also sent a messenger. She wishes to dine together, and therefore Lady Rebel is invited to the palace tomorrow. A new day has arrived and events are taking place in the imperial palace. The main character's carriage just arrived there. She came out and was all shining. The dress was simply luxurious. As 9 was telling him how to get to his destination, someone approached. It was His Serene Highness the Archduke. He had not seen Rebel for a long time. The man says that he will take the young lady to the place himself. The conversation turned to yesterday, and the girl decided to say that she had just gone out for a walk and met an acquaintance. The main character somehow manages to change the subject and ask how he spent his day yesterday. Nearby, the conversations of aristocrats could be heard. They did not know that the Archduke would arrive today. Rebel was very surprised when she heard them talking about Sistina. Everyone noticed that he had recently begun to visit the palace more often. But don't pretend that nothing happened. When that knight appeared, everyone was scared. The girl screams very loudly to scare those people and attract attention to herself. And she does it well, but the man has questions. As an excuse, she decided to say that she just had an ant sitting on her dress, but there really was someone there. The girl literally screamed and rushed towards the young man. You had to be so scared of an ordinary and harmless praying mantis. She didn't even notice how she found herself in the arms of the Archduke. When Rebel realized everything, her face immediately turned red. She apologized and asked to be let go because she considered herself heavy. The man was a little embarrassed and said he would tell the lady. What if the beetle followed them? The characters reached a beautiful garden. The meeting place. The Empress was delighted. What a sight. Had they really walked like that all the way from home? The woman thanks them for visiting her. The food is just ready. There is a wide variety of dishes here, as the cooks did not know what the young lady might like. The Empress hopes that the food will be to your taste and that you should not be shy, but just eat. When asked how things are, Rebel replies that everything is fine. 9 should have told him what happened yesterday anyway. Yesterday was a terrible day. And then there was that incident in the evening. The woman also asks if everything is okay with her son. Sistine's face immediately darkens. He answers dryly. And there are no problems foreseen in the future. Rebel can't understand what's going on with his expression. This is just a normal conversation, right? But after this, the man adds that if Mother is worried, he can send a report every week as before. The main character cannot understand what is being discussed at all. Sistine wouldn't joke like that, so he described every action he took in the report. In any case, something needs to be done about this atmosphere and silence. Will anyone say anything? Or will she have to speak first? The Dowager Empress takes the initiative and laughs. Then she says that there is no need for that. Hearing that he is okay is more than enough for her. Now everything is different, not like before. The man becomes calmer again and agrees with his mother. The woman pricks a tomato and addresses the main character. She asks if she has thought about what to do next. The Dowager Empress had revenge on Roland Dillon in mind. Again, they started talking about place and profit, which Rebel didn't really like. So she replies that she would like to sort things out herself. This statement greatly surprises the characters. The girl really appreciates their care, but she does not want to involve strangers in her personal affairs. If this is her wish, they will not interfere. But how does she think she will pull this all off? Rebel jumps up and says that yesterday she had a simply brilliant idea, but she was stupid again and forgot about Sistine, who was sitting next to her. The young man began to stare at her and interrogate her. The girl can't think of anything better to say than that she forgot and will try to remember. The main character cannot tell because her fiancé does not know about the second life. Then the Archduke comes up with his own option, to challenge Roland to a duel. His fiancé's honor is involved in this matter, so he, as a husband, has sufficient grounds for this. The Empress supports and says that this is a great idea. The woman is not going to hesitate and asks to bring ink and paper, and the girl to stop all this madness. What should she do? Ask if it was worth shedding blood for this? If you think about it, it wasn't common sense that usually changed Sistine's mind, but her personal preferences. Rebel turns on her acting skills again and says she is very touched. But she would not like to hear about bloodshed. The man was confused, and he wasn't the only one. The girl continues. She has been horrified by the sight of blood since childhood, and just the thought of it makes her head spin. If she is really so important to the Archduke, then she asked to do without duels. The main character went all in. She should hope for luck so that everything works out. Sistine agrees. Since this is her wish, he will not do it. Rebel blushes. He really listened to her words. But all these role-playing games left the main character without strength. In this case, Mother suggests an alternative option. Bury the hatchet. The girl already thought that they wanted to bury the poor guy alive. This is a little different. The Empress wants to bury the news of Roland and Venika's wedding. According to what is written, their wedding is scheduled for the 4th. The Count's wedding attracts a lot of attention. It will not be possible to completely bury such news, but they can hold the Archduke's wedding earlier, more precisely on the 3rd. The main character was very surprised by the Empress's brilliant idea. The most effective way to distract attention from a story is to make it bigger. Roland and Venika's wedding was just starting to make a splash. If they publish news of the Archduke's wedding, it goes without saying that all attention will shift to them. It's a great idea for revenge, but Sistine says it's not enough. The main character is surprised by such a statement. Why is he doing this? The man adds that they need to find a wedding location far away from the Dillon estate, somewhere that would take more than a day to get to. The guests will have to choose which wedding to attend. No one would be foolish enough to choose a count over an archduke. There won't be a single guest, a forgotten wedding. This will hit their reputation and connections very hard. They must suffer as much as Rebel suffered. No, even more. Sistine thinks they deserve it, doesn't she? The girl was not given the opportunity to say anything. Preparations will begin right now. Rebel's mood worsened. She somehow became gloomy. The young man asked if there was something she was not happy with. But the girl simply did not want to use the wedding for revenge. He had wanted to say this for a long time, but now revenge concerns not only her. She will soon officially become an archduchess. Her revenge is now his revenge too. If, by hastening the wedding, they take revenge on him and this eases Rebel's pain, he will be happy. That's why he wants to do everything for his future bride. So the word use is not needed here. Sistine just wants to help. The girl was embarrassed, these words. He really remembered such a trifle. The Dowager Empress sighs and asks what they will do in the end. The main character smiles and replies that if Sistina is happy with everything, then that's what they'll do. Well, now that they have decided on a date, the article can be officially published. The Empress has probably already contacted the publishing house, so they just need to be prepared for the interview. The man wants to choose the reporter himself. He has someone in mind. Someone who is well-versed in publishing news about the Durant family. Reporter Bell is already an expert in this matter, so why not? It would also be great if they were there together. Rebel tries to convince Sistine whether Bell will show up at all. After all, he wrote a not very pleasant article about the Archduke in the past. The young man is sure that he has already written an article about him. So would he really be afraid of a simple interview? The man conducted a detailed investigation and found out that reporter Bell does not like to go out in public and sometimes sends subordinates. If he scares him, he can send someone instead. Sistina will arrange that too. The girl herself spread these rumors about her subordinates in order to hide her ability to transform. Bell profited from these articles about him, and no one wants to feel the wrath of Sistine von Durant. It's all very complicated. Because of him, bad rumors have spread, but he can also fix everything and refute them. Then Rebel suggests that she take the interview herself. If the Archduke is not around, then he will have no reason to hide. The lady promises that everything will go smoothly, you just need to rely on her. Night has come, the main character is getting ready for bed. When Sistine mentions reporter Bell, it's as if her life is shortening a little. As long as she works as a reporter, situations like this will continue to happen. The Empress insists that she continue publishing articles, so she can't just stop. But Rebel doesn't want the man to know about everything. Even though the Empress promised to protect her, if he finds out, it's hard to even imagine his reaction. The main character thought for a second what her actions could lead to. But still, I simply decided that the Archduke should not know about this. It is necessary to conduct the interview properly to avoid unnecessary suspicions. The lady wished the shadows good night, and they responded in chorus. The events take place early in the morning in the estate of Roland Dillon. The servants are discussing the latest newspaper, or rather their master's ex-fiancée. It looks like the young man hasn't seen this article yet. He sits on his couch and thinks about how many invitations to make. 500, 700? After all, the Alero family had quite a few connections. This is the main reason why he marries this woman. Someone is knocking on the door, which does not please the pompous Roland. Unless it's about money or something important, he's not going to deal with it now. But when he heard the name Rebel, he became very angry and still decided to read the article. He thought his ex had done something wrong again, but that wasn't the case. Seeing the contents, the young man's face immediately changed. He couldn't believe such news. Rebel was marrying Archduke Durant? The wedding is scheduled for the 3rd and will take place on the island of Siasta. Only now did Roland realize that this was the day before his wedding. No one would come to see them. Now the man understood why she didn't give way. Was she really trying to take revenge on him? He is not going to sit idle, so he asked to prepare the carriage right now. The girl assumes that Roland is now beside himself with rage. It's a pity that she won't see it with her own eyes. The article is published, which means neither he nor Alero can just sit around doing nothing. They need to be prepared for this. 9 says there's no need to worry about them moving up the wedding date. The nobles also need to get approval from the protocol department to make any changes. The Dowager Empress had taken care of this long ago. The head of the department has already been informed and warned about everything. The man doesn't understand just one thing. Why do they need to conduct another interview? She's already published the article. Sistine wanted to take him out, and besides, neither she nor he goes out into society, so all sorts of rumors are circulating. Some sensations quickly become accepted fact if they are not immediately refuted, and therefore those involved in the rumors must make their statement. That is what the interview is for. Rebel is going to write about how they met. This is what worries people the most. For example, the dramatic story of the union of Lady Ivola and Archduke Durant. A maid comes into the main character's office and asks her to come down. The girl asks what's the matter since it's so important. After the article was published, noble families began sending letters and gifts. There were so many that they came to call the lady. The lady says she will look through their letters and the servants will put everything in the pantry in the meantime. Everyone suggested meeting. There were a lot of invitations, especially for tea. And how could we do without gifts? A fountain pen, cheese, elite alcohol, jewelry. All the contents were carbon copies, nothing original. Most letters are invitations to events. Rebel, of course, understands that they want to establish relations with the Archduke's family, but she doesn't want to go anywhere at all. One small mistake, and rumors will start spreading not only about her, but also about Sistina. But ignoring the invitations is not an option either. Those that are important are frightening because of the possible attention, and those that are too insignificant for the debut of the Archduchess. In any case, it is not necessary to decide this right now. It can be left for later. The main thing is not to forget to discuss this with Sistine or the Empress. The girl was surprised when she saw another carriage, and on it was the coat of arms of the imperial family. A man came out from there, a messenger from the emperor. This was a direct letter to Lady Ivola from His Majesty the Emperor. The contents of the letter turned out to be ridiculously simple. The emperor summoned her to the palace for a personal meeting the following morning. When she married the 3rd most important person in the empire, the Archduke, the girl expected everything, but not this. A bloody emperor who kills anyone who dares to pose a threat to him. Rebel thought that she would be called to such meetings together with Sistine. The thought occurred to her that it was the initiative of the Dowager Empress, But it did not seem so. The main character was all tense. It was even difficult to imagine what awaited her inside. But she could no longer refuse to enter, come what may. The girl hopes that nothing serious will happen there. The main character, as required by etiquette, greets His Majesty the Emperor. The man casually asks if she is Rebel Evela? Or would it be more correct to say Lady Rebel von Dorada, future Archduchess? The girl replies that the wedding has not yet taken place, which means that this title does not yet belong to her. However, His Majesty can call her as he wishes. A grin appears on Emperor Karas's face. Then how about Reporter Bell? Very interesting name. The main character was stunned and still cannot understand what happened. At first, the girl tries to act stupid, as if she had never heard of such a thing. But the Emperor immediately asks to stop this performance. He has already conducted an investigation. Rebel Evela is the only daughter of Count Evela. She has no other parents. After the Countess's death from a chronic illness, the father turned to gambling, abandoning both his estates and his own family. Compared to the family of Count Alero, who are active in politics, finance, and social circles, nothing similar has been noticed about the Evela family. Current assets: a mansion mortgaged to a gambling house, a paltry sum. Other than the fact that she is a reporter, nothing else remarkable. That's why Karas called her. He needs to know how she managed to marry Sistine. He believes that a detailed explanation would be very appropriate here. Does he really want to say that the marriage is not real? Does Sistina suspect her too? Thinks there is some personal interest behind this wedding? But how can I prove to him that this is not so? Just be honest? But how can she tell such a thing to His Majesty? That night, the main character wants to try to beat around the bush and confuse people's minds. She and Sistine marry for the same reason as everyone else. They met by chance and their feelings for each other grew over time. Apparently, it won't be possible to pull the wool over the Emperor's eyes. He only became more irritated. Coincidence? Feelings? Love? Sistine? Rebel lost. It seems he knows this man well. If the Archduke had been capable of feelings, Karas would not have summoned her. Considering her pathetic excuses, his suspicions are not unfounded. These two have set their sights on his rightful place, the throne and crown. Rebel is shocked. This is treason. She would never even dare to think about it. The man gets up and goes down to get closer to the main character. Even if so, can she guarantee that Sistine thinks the same? The girl wrote an article about the Archduke's inability to fulfill his marital duty, and that's her mistake. Sistine chose this path to prove that he doesn't need power. Refusal of marriage means refusal of an heir and continuation of the family line. Despite his doubts, this sudden announcement of the wedding made him doubt these intentions. Moreover, Rebel's activities lately are no less suspicious. She often sees the Dowager Empress, even more often than Sistine himself, and is guarded by shadows. The lady who is favored by the most powerful man in the empire marries the man first in line to the throne. So it is clear that his suspicions are not unfounded. What should Rebel do now? If she did not dispel his suspicions, not only she, but perhaps the Empress herself would be in danger. Facts are needed. So the main character has no choice but to tell the truth. The girl completely understands His Majesty. She was too embarrassed to talk about it, but she will have to. As he probably already knows, she was dumped by her own fiancé. That night, she got completely drunk in a secret bar. It so happened that Sistine was sitting next to her and they started talking. And as a result, everything came to one thing. They spent the night together. In general, this was one of the reasons why she is getting married now. When the man digested all the information and put it all together, he grinned. It doesn't look like the main character is lying, especially in this situation. The heartless Sistine went to a bar and spent the night with a girl? There remains one more question. What about his mother's protection? She's never sent her shadows to protect anyone before. The girl didn't know if she could say this, but she had no other choice. Although the story is long, the Empress asked her for one favor. The events take place in the Alero estate. The Count has finally returned home. The children meet their father and ask how everything went. There shouldn't be any problems with the documents, should there? When the Count says that the wedding date cannot be changed, the characters are surprised. All the department employees refused him. The imperial family ordered them not to change anything. Father looks very gloomy. They wouldn't do this without a reason. These children, they didn't do anything to upset the imperial family, did they? But since Rebel came along, everything has changed. If so, then for the sake of the future of the Alero family, this wedding should be canceled. Roland tries to convince his father-in-law. They have no problems with the imperial family. Probably she mixed something up. It's worth trying again. The Count says he was made to understand clearly that this was impossible. Does he really think they'll listen to some brat? The man can't understand what's going on? And this after everything he had to go through for this marriage? Venica is biting her nails. She needs to say something too. We need to act. Roland claims that he will sort everything out. The main thing is to just focus on preparing for the wedding. The father-in-law sighs deeply. He understands everything and somehow agrees. A man goes to the protocol department. He must meet with the Duke of Fethia. Could this really be Rebel's doing? Did she conspire with the imperial family to undermine his position? But he's not going to sit back and do nothing. If his wedding doesn't go according to plan, then neither will hers. The events take place again in the imperial palace. In a nutshell, Mother asked Rebel to write articles that provoked Sistine, and the shadows are next to her to make sure that the task is completed. The main character confirms that the Emperor understood everything correctly. The girl told everything. The main thing was that the Empress would pardon her. Karis smirks again and says what a ridiculous situation this is. There is nothing more to tell him. Mother is quite capable of such things. Rebel nevertheless believed that this marriage was not for the purpose of rebellion against His Highness. However, this does not mean that he will trust them. It is worth behaving properly. It was a warning. This time he would let it go, but he would watch. Why does he suspect everyone? There is no one who is less power-hungry than Sistine. But it's still very strange. Could it be that something happened between them? The brothers that wasn't mentioned in the original story? The girl plucks up her courage and asks why he doubts the Archduke. The man nervously taps his finger on his throne. How can she be sure without looking into his heart? The main character just realized that she had said something unnecessary. But still, shouldn't Sistine's actions have convinced him? He even swore allegiance to His Majesty and became captain of the knights. Karis replies that people are not always what they seem at first glance. Once upon a time, he trusted your brother sincerely, just as she does now. The man believed that Sistine was who he saw her to be, without hidden intentions. He gritted his teeth until one unpleasant incident. In any case, if Rebel wants a peaceful life next to her husband, then she needs to play her role properly. Even if he has no thirst for power. Who knows? Maybe those around him will force him to change his views. Karis orders the girls to watch out for those who might fill his head with nonsense and make sure he doesn't entertain any undue hopes. Then the Emperor will approve of their marriage. They say stress makes you lose weight, and apparently that's true. The imperial family will finish her off someday. Nine hands the main character some paper and asks her to cheer up. This is a rough draft of tomorrow's morning paper, and it looks like it's coming out pretty well. The interview will be on the front page. The editor said that such romance is rare in their time. If the girl had written down everything she had told the Emperor, Sistine would have been at least embarrassed. A story written like a novel, not a regular article. A lie with a grain of truth. The main character asks the knight to convey that she is pleased with the rough draft. 9 also mentions that the Empress Dowager was delivering a message. She said to free up Rebel's schedule because wedding preparations would begin very soon. It was not the bride who was busy, but the mother. All the instructions came from her. All the main character had to do was choose between the options provided. At some point, she even wondered if she herself had become too brazen. The girl wanted to help with something, since she was the one getting married, but the Empress did not allow it. The woman said that Rebel only needs to answer questions and ask if necessary. This is her patronage. And also, if there is time, he and Sistine need to get out and spend time together. However, due to the upcoming wedding, the Archduke was also very busy. After looking at his schedule, the main character's eyes popped out of her head. The wedding was moved up to an earlier date, so there was a lot of urgent matters to attend to. Therefore, the girl decided to come next time so as not to distract with her visit. And just as she was about to leave, someone's voice stopped her. It was Sistine. He asked, "Is Rebel leaving already?" In the end, the main character stayed for lunch, and afterward they enjoyed tea. She felt awkward seeing how much he worked. She was about to leave, but the man said his top priority was spending time with his bride. He also asked not to worry and to come at any time. These words made Rebel visit him several more times. So 2 weeks passed. Literally, in a week, their wedding should take place. But at such a crucial moment, she was told that her house was about to collapse. In general, it all started like this. Under the sensitive guidance of the Empress, preparations for the wedding went off without a hitch. She trusted Rebel with only one choice, the wedding dress. She had to try on absolutely all the dresses and choose the best one. The assistant said that although there were many of them here, this only meant that the Empress's love was boundless. They had to hurry because they also had to choose decorations. A lot of time passed, and it was already deep night. The dress the girl has chosen will be sent before the ceremony, and the rest will be burned. The assistant says that they can't fall into anyone else's hands. Rebel asks to leave them. Why burn clothes that she wore only once? She still wanted to buy a couple of dresses, let them hang in the wardrobe. But the maid says that there is a problem. This is the only closet in the estate, and there is nowhere else to put the dresses. The main character is very surprised. How is that possible? But then she remembers that her father took out everything that wasn't nailed to the floor. A lady from a romantic fantasy without a wardrobe is a shoemaker without shoes. The girl should still build a separate room for the dress, even though she doesn't really want to spend money on this house. She was very serious, but then a problem occurred. When Rebel asked to tear down the wall between the rooms, she was told it was impossible. The main character almost burst into tears. Are there really problems again? The man explains that the building is too old and apparently has not been looked after at all. It's surprising that it's still standing. For safety reasons, it's recommended to demolish it and rebuild it. This news is like a bolt from the blue. How much money will it take? While the revenge girl was thinking about what to do, a man approached from behind. The main character was scared, but the voice seemed somehow familiar. It was the Archduke. He said he would cover all the expenses. It would be worth hiring more workers so that the construction would go faster. The man arrived as soon as he heard that his fiancée intended to start construction. The girl says that she appreciates his concern, but there are too many problems with the estate, especially before the wedding. Then the father intervenes and says that it is absolutely impossible to rebuild. It is forbidden. The main character is confused. Why does it even matter to him? She gritted her teeth. How could he even have the conscience to object? Sistine asks. What is the reason? It is dangerous to be in the estate. Viscount Evella replies that this house is filled with memories of her suddenly deceased wife and parents. But the Emperor told Rebel a completely absurd fact. Her father's current assets, a mansion mortgaged to a gambling house, are a paltry sum. The investigation showed that Count Evella had even lost his property rights. As a result, the house became the property of another person. And since the estate does not belong to him, rebuilding it is simply pointless. The main character refuses her fiancé's proposal, which makes her father very happy, explaining this by the fact that there was less than a week left before the wedding, and after that she would move in with the Archduke. Viscount Evella comes up from behind and whispers, "What about him?" Rebel ignores him and asks Sistine to step aside so they can talk in private. The man suggests finding another place to live for a while. The girl says that everything was fine until yesterday, so she will wait another week. But the Archduke cannot allow his bride to remain in such a dangerous house. Her safety is his highest priority. Then, out of the blue, another character appears. The Empress came to look at the chosen dress, and then a more serious question arose. The woman looks at Nine and says that she is already aware of all the events. If they both don't mind, why doesn't Rebel move to the Archduke's estate a little earlier? This way, there is no need to look for a place, and she will be safe. Sistine agrees. It's a great idea. If the girl is okay with it, of course. But she's not yet mentally ready, especially to share a bed with him. But the man says in time that there are many free rooms in the estate. This surprises the main character. What did she imagine there? Since they are not married yet, it is a bit inappropriate and there is no rush. But if his bride so wishes, they can share a bed without any problems. Sistine is touched by the main character's reaction and even smiles. As a result, they postponed building the dressing room and the girl moved into the estate a week before the wedding. Now it's time for Rebel to see her new room. The entire ceiling is decorated with gold, and the chandelier is blinding just from looking at it. Is this really just an ordinary spare room? Everything here is so luxurious. Sistine replies that not really. He couldn't put her in an unprepared room. The man gently takes the main character by the hand. He says this is their future shared bedroom. The girl is silent, unable to say anything. She is confused. A blush appeared on her cheeks and sweat ran down her face. Out of awkwardness, he really wanted to remove his hand, but Sistine did not allow this to happen. Are they really going to share a room already? If it's because of what she said, then don't worry. It was just a slip of the tongue. The man takes a deep breath and says that everything is fine. In his eyes, she becomes more and more charming. And she was so persistent then. They will be sleeping together starting next week, but for now, the room is entirely at her disposal. Sistine will tell you about the duties of the Archduchess after the wedding. For now, she can calmly explore the mansion and get acquainted with the servants. The next morning, the butler came. He greeted the lady and said that from now on they would serve her faithfully and truly. After Rebel met with the servants, she began to explore the vast domain of the Archduke. It turns out that the estate is designed to withstand attacks from magical beasts. At first, everything seemed cold to her, But now the girl sees that it is quite cozy here. The main character was walking in the garden and heard the voice of her fiancé. And the most important thing that has changed is that the atmosphere around Sistine is becoming much more comfortable and warmer. Without even noticing it, Rebel began to look forward to the days she would spend with him. The rest of the week flew by in an instant, and here it is, the wedding day. The main character is standing in a white dress trimmed with gold threads, and the man is in an elegant suit. Holding hands, they headed towards the center of events, where the formal ceremony awaited them. Everything was sparkling and decorated with beautiful flowers. The guests were discussing the newlyweds. It seems that the article about love at first sight wasn't a lie. Everyone was tormented by some doubts, but it was clear that the man was completely smitten. The way he carefully puts the ring on says a lot. The Empress was afraid that the nobility would make a fuss about Rebel's origins, but apparently there was nothing to worry about. The day ended well. The characters also tried their best. The girl asks where they are going now. Sistine replies that they will return to the villa. His domain is not suitable for a wedding night. Although the situation with magical beasts is much better than before, but from time to time they creep up to the estate and scratch at the windows. It was already dark, and they finally reached their destination. It was very quiet inside, and the man stepped over the threshold first. Rebel may not know it yet, but today it's just them in the mansion. Alone. The events take place the day before. The butler says that immediately after the wedding, all the servants will have a 3-day vacation. As a rule, some remain, but the Archduke insisted that he could manage on his own. Finally, Helia wished everyone to enjoy their vacation. There were only 2 of them left. They were now husband and wife, and this could not be avoided. Sistine is probably nervous too, so the girl wants to somehow ease the atmosphere. The main character became nervous and loudly shouted that she was ready. This is their first wedding night, so she will fulfill her marital duty. The man looks sad and replies that the girl doesn't owe him anything. This marriage is built on mutual benefit after all. He won't demand a typical life from her, so there's nothing to worry about. Rebel doesn't understand this. Again, he draws some kind of line. The main character stands right in front of the young man. He may not demand it, but she will. The girl dreamed about it all her life and came here for this very reason. No matter what the reason, marriage is marriage. From now on, they are a couple. Even if the relationship between them is very ordinary, they can have lunch together and share their experiences, and share a bed from time to time. Can they afford a simple life too? Rebel went on a tirade here because she didn't like Sistine's relationship. But what to do next? The man puts his arm around the bride and whispers in her ear. Does she really want this? Just like last time, the main character agrees. A passionate kiss filled with love ensues. Events unfold the next day. Roland's wedding. They decided to split the wedding into 2 days so that if the ceremony lasted until tomorrow, the guests would have time to arrive. Father-in-law says it's smart to use the impossibility of changing the wedding date as an excuse. He did everything he could. The man asks if the bride is happy with everything. There is no better option anyway. But Venica replies that there is, even if they don't get married at all. But her father has already given his consent. Who would have thought that she would lose all desire? Roland is not going to give up so easily. All his suffering was just for the sake of benefit. The man is about to go out to check out the hall. Everything should look just great there. But then he stopped in surprise and noticed that unexpected guests had arrived. These are Knight's investigators, but what are they doing here? The young man tries to hide everything from Venica and asks her to stay behind the door. The girl introduces herself as the deputy commander of the Knights, Investigator Ciel. This morning, they received reports with photographic evidence. The man was horrified. He immediately recognized his colleagues. They all gave their testimony, and Count Roland Dillon was arrested for illegal tax collection. The events take place 2 days ago at the Archduke's estate. Rebel has a message for 9 and hands him an envelope. The main character hasn't written anything for a long time. This is a new article. She reveals the whole truth about Roland Dillon's illegal tax collection. The girl orders to take her to the inspection, right on the day of Roland's wedding. Some of the reports came from anonymous sources, so printing was not an option. This was another sensation. Reporters literally surrounded Viscount Roland. The man understands that if Venica's father finds out about this, he will immediately cancel the engagement. Before leaving, he managed to tell his bride that this was just some kind of misunderstanding. But the girl was not going to tolerate this any longer. She did not want to marry him anymore. Venica thought that Roland would sit still, so she did not refuse the wedding. But illegal tax collection is too much. There must be some kind of limit. If she had married him, he would have destroyed the whole family. It was all over between Venica and Roland, and the headlines of the articles became harsher and harsher. Such a major event would never happen without some noise. Everyone is trying to attract readers. Rebel thought that the newspapers would not be published until the evening. But to give credit to the journalists, they are not wasting time. Sistine notes that she knows a surprising amount about journalism. If she had told him that she herself was a reporter, he would not have even doubted it. The main character again managed to dodge the topic and invite the groom to dinner. Who knew they would wake up so late? The girl had just opened her eyes and the sun was already setting outside the window. The man replies that there is nothing to be done about it since they also went to bed late. Rebel remembers the events of last night and blushes. That long night, which began with a kiss, dragged on and on until dawn. That's why these two fell asleep only towards the morning. We woke up at sunset, enjoying the warm rays of the sun softly shining through the curtains. The lad has no shortage of stamina. Apparently, the night's training paid off. But while the girl was falling asleep, various thoughts were spinning in her head. The emperor told her that the reason why Sistine did not want to marry was the desire to prove that he was not aiming for the throne. Rebel still can't understand why he went back on his word. To avoid guessing anymore, she wanted to ask directly. This question caught the young man by surprise. Before answering, he asked her if she liked romantic stories. Sistine said he fell in love at first sight, but the lie was immediately exposed. The main character asks seriously, so she wants an honest answer. But the man had already told and promised that he would not use the word use. Rebel asks again, does that mean he got married to take advantage of her? But the girl still doesn't understand how, in what way, she can be useful. The Archduke cannot give a precise answer. The only thing he can say is that no one else can offer it. She can enjoy power, luxury, fame, and revenge without worrying about anything. A man will give all this because a girl gives something of equal value. Every time Rebel takes a step forward, trying to get closer to Sistine, she has to take 2 steps back. Why couldn't he just say it? If he opened up, she might be able to help somehow. Although it is not the main character who should say this, she has no less secrets. The events take place 3 days later. All the servants return to the estate. Rebel also has the responsibilities of an archduchess. Until now, the Duke had been running the estate's affairs on his own. Now, that responsibility will fall to her, including organizing events and handling some external matters. However, the Archduke said that if the girl found it too difficult, she could stop doing it. The main character has a lot of enthusiasm. She has been waiting for this for a long time. The butler takes out a pile of invitations. First, it's worth sorting them out. It is necessary to look at them all and give an answer to those that the lady intends to visit. The girl is shaking from the amount of the first work. There are too many of them there. The butler explains that there are all the invitations that were sent after the wedding, as well as those that were brought from the estate. Rebel remembers these are the very ones she put off for later. It's not hard to write a few words in a reply letter. The problem is different. In high society, they like to make up God knows what. You need to answer thoughtfully to avoid this. And also, one answer is not enough. It is more important to show up for the invitation. As an archduchess, she should show herself in society. The main character's head started to hurt from thinking about it. But then she saw someone. This is her fiancé. He took the whole box of invitations for himself, after which he began throwing them into the fireplace, saying that they were sent before they got married. There was no need to deal with them, especially when you had a headache. If a girl gets into a tough situation, she should just drop everything. Rebel says she appreciates his concern, but she can't give up just because things are hard. Now she is the Archduke's wife, and she needs to choose an event at which she can make her debut. Here, the main character received an invitation from the Dillons. These people even published an official order. They're probably just trying to convince others that their family is still afloat before it's too late. The girl suggests burning this obscene invitation, but the man stops her and still offers to attend the banquet. It doesn't matter where they go, they'll still be whispering in the corners. If they attend a banquet of a high-ranking aristocrat, they will be thought to be seeking power. If they attend an event of the upper crust, they will be thought to be seeking wealth. The Dillons are the best option. This event is already one of the major events in the empire, and the archdukes themselves will be there. Considering that this is the first event after the tax scandal, reporters and nobility will certainly show up. And what's more important, Rebel will be able to show Roland that she can live just fine without him. Even though this invitation was probably written only out of politeness, the characters will still head there. The day of the banquet has arrived. The events take place at the Dillon estate. Roland and his father are struggling to hold the event with the funds they have almost none left. Fortunately, many have accepted the invitation. The butler announces the arrival of a guest, and for a moment the man thinks that this is his bride. But when he hears the name of Archduke and Archduchess Durant, his face immediately darkens. The carriage was already waiting near the entrance. It was too late to take any action. The young man quickly began to descend. He did not believe what was happening. Roland sent an invitation to show politeness, and they actually showed up. But it was true, the main character's dress sparkled and stood out from all the others. Everyone in the room was delighted and couldn't take their eyes off it. The girl greets the host of the celebration, Viscount Roland from the House of Dillon. People began to whisper among themselves. Some were discussing His Highness the Archduke. Someone mentioned the new Archduchess, but they didn't say anything bad, just the usual gossip. The only one who wasn't happy was Roland. He kept calling Rebel's name and cursing her. She ruined his wedding, and now she's come to sabotage the carefully arranged banquet that was supposed to be his return to society. But the man can say nothing of his thoughts, but only greet her ladyship. Roland doesn't understand how much longer this woman is going to torture him, but he is powerless as long as she is under the protection of the imperial family and the Archduke. While the man was reasoning, he remembered some moments from the past. He always didn't understand where the main character went so late at night. Every time they met, she would always hide behind work and run away somewhere. When Roland asked what she did, he didn't hear a clear answer. Since he only intended to play with her, he didn't care too much, but now, what could she do at night? Date a man? At that moment, the young man had a complete picture, even though it did not correspond to the truth. But not knowing the whole truth, he considered it the only possible one. If the Archduke finds out that his beloved is seeing another man every night, she will be in trouble. A man comes up from behind and asks, "What good thing happened to the gentleman?" An unknown person whispers that it must have been difficult to organize a banquet in such confusion. When Roland got angry, the guest said it was just a joke, after which he took out some kind of business card. It seemed ominous with a snake. Thanks to her, he will be able to get everything he wants, be it power, honor, or glory. All that is required from a man is money. This is a business card and an invitation at the same time. When Roland wanted to ask who he was, the unknown guest simply disappeared. While the young man was looking around, he crashed into one of the guests. The man immediately apologized and asked not to pay attention, but just enjoy the banquet. It was 9. He thought that he should tell the lady about Roland's strange behavior. In the center of the banquet hall, servants carried trays with drinks for the guests. The main character takes 2 glasses and asks Sistine if he wants some, but he refuses, saying that he doesn't tolerate alcohol well. As a rule, people of their status rarely attend events held in such old estates. So such a reaction from Roland was to be expected. Rebel is shocked. Old? Everything here is so shiny that it makes your eyes water. If this estate is old, then hers is prehistoric. But in any case, she is glad that she managed to debut in society for the second time. The first was, to put it mildly, terrible. The nobles whispered among themselves, planning to go up and greet the Archduchess to improve their connections. After all, the Archduke is a tough nut to crack. The main character was very surprised when she was called out. A whole crowd came up to her and started showering her with compliments. Rebel was completely confused. At first, she couldn't understand why they approached her so abruptly. Afterwards, everyone started bombarding her with questions about business, meetings, invitations, and so on. The man noticed that his bride was uncomfortable and that something was wrong. Concerned, he asked if everything was okay, if something had happened. But then Sistine felt that his magic was getting out of control. This had never happened before when Rebel was around. The Archduke immediately understood what the problem was. The girl's condition was reflected in him. Something had to be done urgently before the situation led to disaster. When the main character turned to the man, she turned even paler. She saw that Sistine's condition was even worse than hers. But the man replies that everything is fine, he just feels a little dizzy, after which he suggests going for a walk. Fresh air will definitely help. Many people have said that the gardens here are magical, and they were not wrong. It really is wonderful. Rebel asks if he is feeling better. They can go back and call the doctor. When the girl calmed down, his magic calmed down too. So he replied that no doctor could cope with this problem. The atmosphere has changed somehow. The main character asks again, "No one? What kind of problem is this? Is it really a chronic disease?" Sistine denies it's hard to explain. Something else. The girl says that he is obliged to tell everything if it is related to his health. The young man exhales and agrees. The truth about magic cannot be hidden forever. Everything will be fine if he doesn't mention that unfortunate incident. The Archduke asks the main character if she knows magic. Rebel says that these are the people who are filled with mana. If you know how to handle it, you can become a wizard or a sorcerer. This was the description in the novel. She knows nothing else. The man notes that she is well aware. He was born with this power. With an immense amount of mana that is incomparable to anyone, such magic is like an unquenchable fire. As a rule, it is suppressed in everyday life, but even the slightest spark can start a real fire. When this happens, the head splits in two and it becomes difficult to contain all the magical power. And in order to release the accumulated excess mana, once a month he visited the domain, fighting monsters. But the man hadn't been there in recent months, and all because Rebel stabilizes the mana in him. The main character was very surprised. She didn't even do anything. The man says that it is most likely a passive ability, but it was thanks to her that he no longer had to visit the estate, and he could live in peace. The girl asks, if this is all true, then why did he feel sick at the banquet? He replies that it seems to depend on her state of mind, which was not very good inside. Rebel thought about it. Their conversations really had tired her out so much that it had become difficult to even follow her facial expressions. Who would have thought that she could do anything other than transform? Sistine asks why she lost her composure. He thought that the girl would hold up well even in such a situation. Generally, she doesn't mind the attention, but memories of her unsuccessful debut never left her. This could have happened to any member of a pathetic family like hers. That day, she was ignored throughout the entire ball and was never asked to dance. It was probably all because of the rumors of the time. The ones that arose because of his father, Viscount Evel. And his unremarkable appearance didn't help the situation either. And today, those who so demonstratively insulted her are trying to win her favor. Their hidden intentions are so obvious that it makes you feel sick. A man knows such people too. Those who cling to power and spread rumors to tarnish someone's reputation. They, without a twinge of conscience, turn a decent person into a real monster. Because of such thoughts, the young man felt ill again. The girl got worried. What should she do? Could her ability have broken again? The main character turned around and pulled herself together. She had the Archduke on her shoulder. The first thing she had to do was return home. Everyone started to worry. His lordship was delayed. He couldn't just leave like that, could he? Roland was unhappy with what was happening because he was the host of the party. However, in any case, he was throwing the banquet solely to attract Venika's attention. And here they are. The Alero family has finally arrived. The man has been waiting for them for a long time and even prepared a room where they can talk. But the proud girl replies that she doesn't want to hear anything. Roland can't understand why he's taking such a tone. Has he disappointed her in some way? Even if he has, they're not going to stop everything right there and then, are they? Venika got angry. She came to make it clear that they were breaking up. It was over. The guests laugh. He was abandoned in the end. It's natural. Who would want to go down with him? The idea of severing all ties is reasonable. Besides, Roland Dillon also disgraced the Archduchess. Isn't this the most genuine duplicity? He broke off his engagement with the Archduchess, but never denied that they were lovers. These words made the young man darken and break out in a sweat. When the Archduke's carriage had already left, everyone's attention shifted. There was nothing holding the guests back any longer. Everyone became bored and began to disperse. Roland tried to stop them because the banquet was not over yet, but the attempts were countable. If people leave, then what will he do with the expenses incurred? The events take place in the Archduke's mansion. The characters manage to return. But the main character doesn't know what to do next, because according to Sistine, the doctor won't help. Rebel asks if there is another way to calm his magic. The man says that there is one place at the edge of the garden where he planted raya flowers. The girl remembers. Are these really the same ones? The aphrodisiac she wrote an article about? The characters came to a small clearing of these plants. The young man took the flower in his hands, but nothing seemed to happen. But literally a moment later, his mana began to drain. Rebel didn't know that raya could suppress magic, so she was very surprised. It is not a publicly known fact, but before meeting the Archduchess, he relied on them. The beautiful pink flower turned black in Sistine's hands. Now the girl understands everything. These flowers are popular with the people. They are taken apart like hotcakes. Therefore, in order to buy several at once, you need to do it in secret. The main character blushed. Without knowing it, she wrote that article. Noticing the reaction of the bride, Sistine asked her to tell him what she was thinking. Rebel panicked. Did he really guess? She decided to apologize and said that she had misunderstood everything when she read all those articles. Raya is also used for other things, for example, energy. But now everything was clear. He explained everything, and she personally saw that everything was in order. The man turns completely red and covers his face with his hand. He has a smile from ear to ear and he laughs out loud. This view made the main character fall in love even more. A new day has arrived. The sky is bright blue, not a single cloud. A newspaper was delivered to the estate, which mentioned yesterday's incident between Dylan and Alero. But the girl is not as worried about it as Sistine. Yesterday, he definitely showed emotion. Does that mean that she successfully fulfilled the Empress's request? If everything works out, she will finally leave her job as a journalist. Everything is going so smoothly that it is suspicious. Then 9 knocks on the door of the room the main character allows him to enter. The man reports that the lady received a letter from the newspaper Cryberry. The Archduchess no longer has to scour the countryside for sensational news, because she is relatively popular as reporter Belle in certain circles. People generally only provide rumors, but newspapers are a different matter. They send confirmed information. Well, it's time to scribble some paper. What will the article be about this time? Having read the material, we can say briefly, the traders agreed to set a single price for salt. It is said that the price of this product has jumped throughout the region. Prices had always varied, but this was the first time they had jumped so dramatically. This led to a collapse of the tour's economy. If we take other regions, the price there remains the same. Well, the main character, or rather reporter Belle, gets down to business. She has no equal in corruption cases, so she investigates everything personally. 9 also reports that the Tura region is nearby and can be reached in a day. But the girl's enthusiasm quickly fades when she remembers something. Sistine is the biggest problem. You need to come up with a reason for it. The events take place in the Archduke's office. The bride has already told him everything. She needs to travel to another region because of the hobby she mentioned earlier. Rebel also adds that just in case, 9 will accompany her and her absence will not be long. The man sits down on the sofa to think things over. He allows it, even though she is an archduchess, she also has the right to pursue her hobbies. The main character didn't expect that everything would be so simple. Sistine didn't expect it to require travel. It seems to be a moving occupation. The girl replies that it seems like you have to constantly meet new people. Walk. And in order to not be recognized, she will change her hairstyle and use a pseudonym. Rebel has such an innocent smile, but for some reason the man is a little depressed. He had heard that some aristocrats concealed their identities and went out for walks in secret. But why hide your hobby? Can't you just tell me? Cold sweat ran down the heroine's face, and she began to stutter. Sistine replied that he understood everything and that nothing was needed. But then the girl jumps up and asks to guess. If she just says it all, it won't be interesting at all. Rebel, the most important thing is to drag out the time. In this case, the young man asks for a hint. What should she tell her so as not to lie? But also so that he would not guess right away. The Archduchess decides to answer that she is researching and revealing secrets. There are many things that can be assumed here. Archaeological excavations, historical research, treasure hunting, hobby clubs, and so on. The events take place the next day in the same estate. The Archduke is informed of a recent patrol where nothing strange or suspicious was noticed. All the man's thoughts are filled with yesterday's conversation, the revelation of secrets. What could it be? Sistine replies that this information is quite sufficient. Now, they and the head of the night investigators, CL, should move on to the matter of the incident. Sistine is the lead investigator. He asks how surveillance of the Dillons' properties is going after the scandal. They tell him that everything is now under control and has returned to normal, and Roland has become quiet. So the big question is, did they find out who provided the information about the incident? The man is referring to the report and photographs that led to many articles being written. Seal tried to find out everything, but the only clue they have is that the report was passed anonymously to the guard post. There are no noticeable distinguishing features in the handwriting, so it is extremely difficult to identify the author. And yet, judging by the writing style, one can assume that the author has written similar documents before. In addition, he knows how to use a magic camera. From this, we can conclude that the report was written by someone who makes a living in a similar way. The work of an informant is a kind of assistant, people directly connected with the activities of the Investigators Guild. Absolutely anyone of any age and gender can become one. For a certain reward, they provide information. When the man looked at the documents, it seemed as if this informant had conducted his own investigation. Here, the young man remembered the words of his bride and began to think. This is not related, right? Many hobbies are active. Sistine asks if Ciel has met the Archduchess in person and receives an affirmative answer. In that case, does she think Rebel could be that assistant? The girl replies that this is unlikely. At least as far as she knows, she has not provided information to the night investigators. The Archduke seemed to have been hit on the head and awakened from his thoughts. However, many assistants still do not reveal their identities. Even if she were one of them, no one would know. If Rebel really was an assistant, that would explain a lot. like the fact that she had a job, but there was no mention of it in the newspaper, or the fact that the members of the investigation guild couldn't find her last time, and also adding that she hid everything until the very end and her hint. The puzzle finally came together. From now on, Sistine will not investigate the identity of the informant in this case, explaining that he initially intended to offer him a position as an investigator, but that was no longer relevant. The man is not sure whether his fiancée is the informant, but in any case, he would like to avoid trouble. Since this was the hobby she wanted to pursue, even as an archduchess, he would pretend for now that he knew nothing. The events take place the next day near the Archduke's mansion. The manager is extremely surprised. The lady, of course, mentioned that this is her hobby, but such a carriage and appearance, with all due respect, but she is an archduchess. Helia remembered the words of his lordship. He asked not to ask questions and just support. The maid simply bows and says that there shouldn't be any problems since the region is close, and the shades of Her Majesty always accompany Rebel. The main character thanks for understanding and asks not to worry. Well, they set off on their journey together again with 9. The knight asks what are her ladyship's plans. At the moment, the girl is thinking about digging under the traders. Some of them decided to monopolize the sale of salt and entered into a price conspiracy. First, we need to deal with them, and then with those who supported them. Price fixing is not easy even for those at the top of the trading chain. Even their lord turns a blind eye to it. In addition, they would have to somehow limit the import of goods from other regions. They definitely have aristocrats behind them who get their share of this. 9 says that the lady is truly amazing to figure everything out so quickly. But unlike Dylan, it will be much more difficult to catch these people red-handed. It is unlikely that even the merchants themselves know who these aristocrats are. Besides, when important figures try to hide something, the case will not be closed in 2 counts. The investigation began with doubt and uncertainty. The main culprits were the traders from Tilla and Nia. This was relatively easy to find out, but here are the proofs and reasons. Even shadows couldn't help here. The one-day trip lasted several days. If it weren't for the Archduke's visits, Rebel would have rented a room nearby and finished much faster. The servants did not suspect anything, and upon arrival, they did not have to explain their sudden disappearances. And Sistine himself began to drive her out of the house. The girl is surprised by this. Is he just watching because she asked him to guess? Had the man figured it out? But whatever the case, she should finish the job as soon as possible. Dragging things out even longer is not an option at all. But it was only the calm before the storm. As much as she wanted things to be calm, it certainly wasn't. All the characters are very tired during this time. The lady wishes the shadows a good rest. Tomorrow they will be on the road again. Rebel was wondering if Sistine was sleeping. He had been coming home from work early lately. But then the main character notices something strange ahead. The field of raya flowers was completely dried up. They all withered. Horror appeared in the girl's eyes. What happened here? Yesterday, everything was fine with them. Could it be that the Archduke has become ill again? The girl ran as fast as she could, and the surprised manager reported that the gentleman was in his office. The main character ran as fast as she could to his lordship's door. She opened them abruptly and immediately began calling him. The man was standing at the window when the girl entered. He turned around. Sistine looked, to put it mildly, terrible, with a hoarse voice and bags under his eyes. The main character immediately came closer to assess the situation. She touches his face and asks if his magic is out of control again. He's pale as death. What happened in her absence? The events take place several hours ago. The manager hands over some item. It was found near the Great Hall. No one saw who left it, and the sender's name was not indicated either. The envelope contained a bunch of different photos of Rebel. Somewhere she was sneaking around. Somewhere she was talking to the townspeople and pretending to be a commoner. It looks like these photos were taken while she was pursuing her hobby. Who created them? If it was a reporter, the article would have been published long ago, and if it was a ransom issue at the very least, they would have included a letter of demand. Most likely, someone wants to sow discord between them and destroy the relationship. The first culprit that comes to mind is Roland Dillon. He is the only one with motives. When Sistine became angry, his magic began to go out of control. He hasn't visited his domain for so long that magic boils within him from the slightest irritation. The man used the raya flowers to suppress the mana a little. He had Rebel before, so 1 flower was enough. No wonder she was so worried. He, of course, is not sure that Roland Dillon is behind this, but if the girl finds out that she was caught red-handed, she will be shocked. Sistine decides not to tell anything for now, and tells her fiancé that it is because of loneliness. The main character doesn't understand what this sudden romance is about. The Archduke continues, When she is here, his magic calms down. The girl removes her hand. It seems these words convinced her a little. When the man felt better, she was able to feel relief and exhale. Just in case, Rebel decides not to leave the estate for the foreseeable future. Sistine tries to dissuade her, assuring her that it is not necessary, but her decision remains unshakable. Meanwhile, the investigation in Tura will be handled by Nine and the Shadows. The main character spent almost all of her free time with her fiancé. He even seemed to feel ashamed that because of him, she couldn't pursue her hobby. And in order to somehow make amends for his guilt, he decided to give her a gift. Sistine said it wouldn't be as fun as her hobby, but maybe she'd enjoy it too. But why would she like the report on incidents in the Western region? The man says that he has selected the documents that she can look at, so there is no need to be shy. He seemed to think that her hobby was somehow connected with investigations and crimes. Great. Rebel decides to play along. The Archduke warns that tomorrow he will leave the city on business for 3 days. But will he be okay? Sistine says that as long as he keeps his cool, there shouldn't be any problems. There is an inconsistency in his words. Before this, he said that the magic raged because she was not there. What does a man's condition depend on? Rebel hopes the investigation will be completed within 3 days so she can write the article at home. She wonders if the Shadows have dug up anything useful. Out of nowhere, Nine appears and hands over an envelope. He was waiting for the right moment to report everything. According to the information, 2 more noble families have joined the conspiracy with the Tilla and Nia families. Besides that, Luina is also trying to join. Lady Luina herself secretly sent invitations to 4 individuals, presumably to entertain the guests and attempt to conspire. Rebel is delighted. It will be easy to get in there. When will the meeting take place? Nine asks to calm down. All identities will be checked, and only 5 people are supposed to show up for the meeting, so the risk of detection is high. Although the girl does not know how to take on someone else's appearance, she can disguise herself as Lady Luina. That woman doesn't show herself in public, so no one knows what she really looks like. The main thing is to make sure she can't attend the meeting. The knight says it's very risky. What if they saw Lady Luina in person? Rebel says that they will think about it on the spot. In any case, there is no other way to get there. Nine is very displeased, but still acts on her ladyship's orders. A new day had dawned, and Sistine had already set out with his knights. The main character had just woken up and was still sleepy. The events take place at the temporary base of the night investigators. The Archduke announces that in 2 days, secret negotiations will take place at Viscount Pettia's. Louis must disguise himself as him and infiltrate the meeting, while the others lie low and remain on guard. But people are reporting that there is a small problem. The man was poisoned by something, most likely during breakfast. He needs to play his role without a hitch. It's unlikely he's capable of that in his current state. Since there is nothing else to be done, Sistine volunteers for this role. No one else would be suitable for this role. Someone is too short, someone is too tall, and someone is even a woman. But the assistant is concerned not only about the question of appearance. Will everything be okay? The events take place the day before the meeting. Rebel is ready. She has studied Lady Luina inside and out. Nine also managed to find out who the aristocrat A is. This is precisely Viscount Pettia, whom Sistine must pretend to be. The representative of Viscount Pettia was nicknamed the Black Mask, and the representative of Aristocrat B was nicknamed the White Mask. If the meetings take place in masks, it turns out that the aristocrats themselves do not know who they are dealing with, although they are probably just trying to cover their tracks. That's all Nine managed to find out. They should work properly tomorrow. The day of the meeting has arrived. In order to take Lady Luina's place, she must first be found and captured. For the Shadows, of course, such a task is a piece of cake. They locked her in a remote forest house. They also prepared a carriage for the trip to Ricas Tilla's estate. The girl finds it strange that the meeting is arranged by Luina, but it takes place at Tilla's estate. Nine says it seems like they always have meetings there. If this is true, there are probably some documents stored on the estate. For example, evidence that the rise in salt prices was not a coincidence, but a carefully planned plan. Rebel orders a thorough search of the estate while the meeting is taking place. Here comes Ricas Tilla. The event has already begun. The man can't wait to finally see Luina in person. No one knows what she looks like, but she always wears a black dress and a wide hat. They say that her eyes are as black as the deep night. The aristocrat is simply impatient. I wonder what she's like. The sun was already setting, and the main heroine of this event finally arrived. Rebel looks wonderful, even under cover, as she greets Ricas. The man is very surprised. She is not at all what he expected. Only the hat fits the description. He remarks that her eyes are said to be as black as night. but they are probably more like a sunset. The girl replies that she is simply wearing new magic lenses. Other representatives wear masks, so she thought that there was no need to show absolutely everything. However, the rumors turned out to be false, which left the man a little disappointed. But in any case, the main character did well and no one suspected her. Rebel asks if the others have arrived. He really wants to discuss their business. She turns around and there they are, just in time. 3 men, Mr. Nia, Mr. White Mask, Mr. Black Mask. Could this really be the very same representative? It would be strange to call them that, of course. Among all of them, a man in a black mask stands out. His figure seems very familiar to the girl. Or is it just a figment of her imagination? Siston also seemed to suspect something. After all, there is a connection between them. The man keeps looking at Luina. Is she different from the description and is wearing lenses? Those scarlet eyes remind him so much of the main character. The characters go inside and their carriages will be taken care of. The man in the white mask is the first to speak. He has heard rumors that the girl has made good money in the South. How did she manage to increase her sales so much? Rebel replies that compared to the gentleman, her sales are insignificant. In part, she was just lucky. It seems the conversation is going well. Although Sistine already knew about the white mask's profit, so he's going to add something about the deal in the South. The man spoke in a tone as if he were reading an excerpt from a trade register, clearly, officially, and in absurd detail. Everyone present fell silent and the atmosphere changed. The girl thought that this person needs to take a robot test? Who is he anyway? The events take place several hours ago. The knights tied up and locked up Viscountpedia and handed over the mask. That person is probably not very talkative, so you should refrain from talking. The main thing is to be careful, because even with such cover, his lordship can be exposed. The subordinates were worried. Will everything be okay? The captain has always had very poor acting skills. They hoped that he would simply keep quiet and not attract attention, but he failed here too. The girl didn't understand why he had to go into such detail. Had he really memorized everything? Haven't you heard of the saying, "My tongue is my enemy"? That was so suspicious. Rebel decided to smooth things over by saying that the man was so well informed. Then he knew better than anyone that her boss simply had to be part of this deal. Mr. Tilla should have told everything already. If they join, the income will only increase. The guests said that their masters had already given their consent. If Luina joined them, their influence would expand to the south. The white mask turns to the black one and asks what he thinks about this. Rebel is in anticipation of what he will say this time. He makes a strange gesture, like okay, with a shaking hand. This answer left the main character completely stunned. Night has come. The girl decided to take a break today and sign the contract tomorrow, but something is uneasy in her soul. Among all those present, one person stood out, whose behavior was much more suspicious than her own. At first, Nine doesn't understand what the lady is talking about, but now the main character is sure that not only she is a spy, but also the Black Mask. Had the traders from Tura really told the journalist something? For some reason, that man's voice seemed familiar to her. The knight says that anything is possible, journalists or not, but such a person was sent undercover. Their newspaper should do a better job of checking the competence of its staff. The girl turned into a guy again. She had already filmed the entire estate. Nine found nothing. During the meeting, they thoroughly searched every room. Rebel was sure that the book was here. Was there really not a single locked room? Then the main character thinks, there must be something else. Estates, although very rare, do have secret rooms. We need to check. The girl tries to move the wall, and Nine asks if it's too much. What else can you trust if not your gut feeling? This mansion is only used as a place for secret meetings. Moving shelves will be their next destination. But before starting, the knight gives the lady a magical artifact which can be used to escape. Rebel laughs. What could happen when he's around? But she still has to be careful. It is worth remembering that there are other detectives snooping around the estate. Now, fortunately, he does not feel their presence, but these people are no pushovers. In any case, a girl should keep her ears open and not forget about her safety. The main character reached Rickestill's office. It would be too obvious if there really was a secret room here. But, as they say, if you want to hide something, hide it under everyone's nose. When Rebel began to act, she saw how much dust and cobwebs there were. But some books didn't have it at all, and they're worth checking. It's obvious that they've been taken out a lot, so maybe that's a clue. But the attempts of the main character were even. There was nothing like that. Rebel realizes that she no longer has time for this nonsense. But then she hears some strange sounds behind her. There really was a secret room. The wall moved aside. Rebel was delighted. Her guesses turned out to be correct. Before going inside, she shouted to Nine that she had found the entrance. The main character began to descend the spiral staircase. As soon as the girl disappeared from sight, the doors closed silently as if nothing had happened, leaving only books scattered across the floor. It was much cleaner inside and there was good lighting. Rebel checked everything, one by one so as not to miss anything. She noticed some strange books on one of the shelves. She tried to reach, but she couldn't. Her height didn't allow it. But then a man's hand came to her aid. The girl thought it was Nine. She turned and thanked him. He came so quickly. But when the main character opened her eyes, she realized that this was not her night. The girl immediately tensed up and horror appeared on her face. It's that same man in the black mask. He asks what she's sniffing around here. He's undercover too, right? I had to manage to run into him. Rebel collects her thoughts. If he really is a spy, then the enemy of her enemy is her friend. Since he went so far, they probably have the same goal. The main character suggests not to waste time. She will not interfere with him. For a while, the man stands silently behind Rebel, after which he agrees and also starts working. The girl is shocked that it worked. What's wrong with him? He somehow looks suspiciously like Sistine. She doubts that it is really him, but the thought just won't leave her head. The voice, the manner of speech, the posture, the height are exactly like those of the Archduke. Sistine also went somewhere on business. Maybe he was coming here? The man asked to stop staring and continue searching. He had his suspicions too. The same shade of purple. It's as if Rebel herself is looking at him, but he's a completely different person. How often do people have eyes like that? The Archduke had only seen eyes like that on his bride. If Luina really wears lenses, then he doesn't need them. And then there's that feeling. The main character finally found the book she needed. As she was about to leave, the man grabbed her by the collar. Sistine says that he was also looking for these very documents. At first, Rebel didn't want to give it up, but she was threatened. She agreed to give it to him, but first she had to take a photo. The Archduke replied that now was not the best time. He heard some sounds from above, which made the girl even more wary. The bookshelf began to move and guests were heading towards them. The man was shouting at the top of his lungs that someone had broken into the estate and that the trespassers needed to be caught. The characters needed to do something urgently before it was too late. Little by little, there are more and more guards and they are serious. Sistine says if they stay here even a little longer, they'll get caught. So, photos later. Rebel doesn't understand where they should go. There's no other way out. Everything went dark here, and at first she couldn't understand why. Then I remembered that this meant that the transformation would end in 3 minutes. The man calls out to her and warns that if he continues to pierce her, he will be left alone. Of course, it's not the right time, but the main character still has a little time. Rebel is determined to get out alive and uncaught, so let's go. She asks what their plan is if there is only one way out. Sistine accumulates magic and answers that it means it must be done. He has a very serious face. He is getting ready. After which it releases a powerful stream, causing many fragments to fly apart. The wall was completely destroyed and a beautiful night sky was visible. Now the main character is sure that Sistine is standing in front of her. Rebel asks to wait. Of course, it's great that they have a way out. But they are on the 2nd floor, from where you can't just jump. The Archduke looks at the main character with some suspicion. Well, in any case, they have no other choice. They won't die anyway. They'll just break a couple of bones. The girl is very scared. She gathers her strength, but the man, on the contrary, is eerily calm. But they succeeded. During the flight, Rebel thought that the main thing was to survive. To survive. At first glance, everything was fine with the characters. Sistine patiently waited for his new friend. He asked how long the man plans to sit in the bushes. The guards from the estate could come at any moment. It would be great if he kept his promise. The main character is only happy, but the appearance has disappeared. Only her cloak saved her. Still, there's no point in wasting time. If she continues like this, he's unlikely to like it. We need to come up with something, especially with what is noticeable first. Voice. I'll have to try to speak in a low tone. Rebel suddenly jumps up from the bushes. It won't take long to get scared. She carefully places the book in the man's hands and asks him not to move. The main character captures the pages with her magic camera. But Sistine immediately noticed everything and began to suspect something. The man became taciturn and his height decreased. Is this somehow connected with the fact that he put on a cloak? Rebel is shaking all over and without his nagging, she'll have a heart attack now. The man stops her. If she doesn't answer, it means there is something to hide. The main character understands that things won't go this way. It's getting too dangerous. The girl pushes the hand away. She took the photo, so it's time to run away. The Archduchess rushed away, only her glittering heels flashing in the distance. But Sistine said that he had seen everything that was needed, there was no point in chasing. The knights have already searched for their master, it is time for them to leave too. The white mask was a representative of Count Danil. He thought that everything was covered, so he quickly confessed. The man hands over the ledger as well as the contacts of the accomplices. They must take care of them. Seal asks who that man was. They can detain him without any problem. A man with the same eye color as Rebel and the ability to suppress magic. He, of course, wants to confirm his suspicions, but for now he will leave him alone. First, the mission must be completed. 9 kneels before his mistress and wishes for death. Only in this way will he atone for his guilt for failing to protect her ladyship. Rebel is already all gloomy and asks him to calm down because she is safe and sound. He already did everything he could, that already means a lot. But 9 still thinks he's not trustworthy. He couldn't even break through the magical barrier. When all the commotion started, the guards headed to Rika's office, so he infiltrated their ranks. At one moment, everything thundered, and the knight could not take another step. Their path was blocked by a powerful barrier, but others hardly realized it. Only a capable knight with magic could have placed such a thing. But it didn't affect the girl. She didn't even feel anything. Why? Could this have something to do with her mana suppression ability? Rebel managed to get home first. She asked the manager to keep today's trip a secret. The girl was too close to Sistine. He probably didn't suspect her, but an alibi wouldn't hurt anyway. And here comes the Archduke. Helia is the first to greet His Highness. A conversation starts between the characters. It's still so early, and the main character is not yet asleep. She replies that she was waiting and couldn't lie down alone. Now she can go. But the man asks to wait a minute. He has one question. Today he met a man who had the same eyes as her and the same ability. Does the main character know what this might be connected with? If he says everything so directly, then does he really understand who she really is? Rebel falls silent at first, flying in his thoughts. Then she turns around and plays dumb. Is there really anyone who is so similar to her? Even without taking into account the ability, the same eye color is already striking. She has never met such people. Sistine was surprised. Was it really true that no one in her family had purple eyes? He thought that the man was from her family. That would explain everything. Count Avel doesn't have eyes like that. So he assumed it was a relative on his mother's side. Rebel replies that it seems that color is not hereditary. She does not remember anyone similar. Probably just some kind of mutation. People are still different from family members in some way. Although cases like hers are rare. From now on, the main character will have to be very careful so that even more questions and suspicions do not arise. Since it is already night, the characters are getting ready to go to rest. The events take place the next morning at the Archduke's estate. It seemed that Sistine had no more questions, but Rebel's conscience began to torment her a little. As usual, after breakfast, he left for work. Meanwhile, the girl, with all the information she had obtained yesterday, wrote an article and sent it to print. But surprisingly, it was published in the morning newspaper only the next day. The publishing house always boasts that they publish articles faster than anyone else. Why have they gone quiet now? On the front page was an anonymous article about the price collusion between Count Daniel and Viscount Pettia. It says there that the Count himself was hiding under the white mask. Even Rebel didn't know that. Could these really be investigators? So those people 9 was talking about were really them? Sistine came up from behind. He was also interested in the news. At his request, the main character gives him the morning newspaper. The girl assumes that Sistine infiltrated there together with the investigators. Does the captain of the Knights of Investigation always do this kind of work? He notices something interesting on the news, a photo taken by that unknown person. The man fell silent for a second because the author of the article turned out to be reporter Bell. Sistine said he seemed to know who the man was. The main character was stunned. What? What is he talking about? Looking at the newspaper, the girl became very, very angry. That can't be. But he is sure that this photograph was taken by that very person. Rebel asked not to publish that photo. What hunch dogs? She's trying to somehow get out of the situation. But what if it wasn't him? He has his own subordinates. Then it turns out that he personally knows the reporter Bell. If he catches that man, he will be able to reveal his identity. It seems that now a man's appearance is still forbidden for a girl. Sistine did not come just like that, but to deliver a letter from the Empress. She wants to invite Rebel to tea at the palace. If you think about it, they haven't seen each other for a long time. And finally, she will be able to unwind and relax. Since the Archduke is busy that day, she will have to go alone. But Sistine says that if it is not in order, the girl does not have to go. She is his mother, but for Rebel, she is an empress, the one whom the entire empire admires, the one before whom everyone trembles. Even if they have become one family, it does not mean that family feelings will suddenly appear between them. Therefore, he will ask to postpone the tea party until he is free. Over time, the girl increasingly notices how attentive a person he is. Even at the beginning of our acquaintance, he never went back on his words. It seemed to her that he would not care about her at all, and only needed to complete the task. But the more time she spends with him, the more often she discovers his care. He puts the well-being of the bride above all else, always putting in maximum effort. Why then does Sistine try so hard to hide behind her mask? Rebel replies that everything is fine. After all, they have seen Her Majesty more than once. She is always kind to her. The main character thanks him for his concern, but it's time for her to get ready for tea. The man is left alone with his thoughts. The events take place 2 days later, at a tea party in the palace. The Empress is a little upset that Sistine didn't come, but the two of them won't be bored anyway. The woman asks if the main character has been caught. She heard that investigators were working undercover there. Rebel replies that it was difficult. But what does the Archduke have to do with the investigators? The Empress reveals that he is their leader and also the commander of the Imperial Knights. Sistine has held both positions for quite some time. The inspectorate does not disclose information about the composition of the investigators, with the exception of its external employees. So it is not surprising that she knows nothing. The main character finally realized why he was involved in that case. The mother asks about her son. How is the task going? A girl might say that he has started to show emotions more often than before. But this is new to him. The Dowager Empress sighs. She is sad. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Sistine was used to controlling his feelings. He had lived like that for too long. However, progress is visible and the chances of success are high. No matter how long it takes, the woman feels that Rebel can handle it. She also hopes that the main character will stay with them longer, after which he suggests a great idea. A date with the Archduke. This is of course a good idea, but the Archduke's estate is not at all a suitable place for a walk. Therefore, the young man refuses this offer. He cannot take his bride with him to such a dangerous place. If she wants to go on dates, they can choose another place. But the girl simply asks to go together, even if it won't be like a regular date. Even though it's dangerous, this territory belongs to them. It's the Archduchess's responsibility to look after the duchy. Rebel does not want to just enjoy the privileges of his position, but also fulfill his duty. The man doesn't understand that she already does a lot of things, and this ability alone saves him a lot. He says he's leaving for the realm in a week. That day coincides with the extermination of the monsters. So he can take the girl, but only another time. The Archduchess agrees. First he will go with the knights, and then she will be captured. Sistine is surprised. Knights? What is she talking about? But Rebel is convinced that he cannot be engaged in the extermination of monsters alone, because he is also a human. The man decides to play along, in which case he will do so. The events take place sometime later in the Archduke's office. He asks Ciel to have the investigating knights escort him to the Archduchy. She doesn't understand why, because he is more than capable of handling everything himself. If it were an ordinary person in his place, he would have taken at least a squad with him. The man just wants his bride to be calm. There is no need to fight, just to accompany her. Ciel asks what his lordship is hiding. The Archduchess knows that the young man has magic. Sistine replies that she has only seen the tip of the iceberg, but she has no idea of the real threat that lies within. She only saw his condition worsen when the magic got out of control. But what happens if the girl finds out about the real threat to her life? The man hopes that she will never see this. No one knows how things will turn out. Will she be able to bear this? Will you stay by her side? Just a small precaution to keep their lives calm. The events take place several days later in the Archduchy. The road didn't bring any trouble, but the man had never taken knights before. So all the servants had surprise on their faces, except those, of course, who knew what was really going on. Rebel saw the young man off without a single suspicion, with a smile. On top of that, Sistine still hasn't figured out who was following his fiancée. He's planning to kill 2 birds with 1 stone on this trip. Ciel just found out who was the culprit of that incident. The photographs were sent by an anonymous journalist working as a paparazzi, and the customer turned out to be none other than Roland. The young man clenched his fist. That's what he thought. After he finishes here, he will immediately head to the Dillon estate. The man walked into the forest. He was so black that his eye could be gouged out. The ominous aura becomes denser, a sure sign that many monsters will appear soon. However, thanks to this, he can no longer hold back his magical power. The man rushes forward at full speed towards his opponents. From one place, he seems to teleport to another. Hatred is visible in his eyes. A huge beam of light appeared. It scared all the birds if they were able to fly away. It's evening, and the events are taking place at the Dillon estate. One of the servants brought dinner, but the master decided to throw the plates around. An angry Roland asks if it's not clear that he's not in the mood for a meal right now. The man grinds his teeth, somewhat reminiscent of a mad dog. From that very day on, all business partners broke contracts with him one after another. And Venica completely cut off all ties with him. It's all because of the main characters. Because of them, the aristocrats hated him. Roland believes that he is not guilty of anything, but looks very pathetic from the outside. The maid runs into the room, panicked, and calls for the young master. She reports that His Grace, Archduke Duranta, has arrived. The man asks with a smile what brought Sistine to his humble abode. But then his gaze becomes worried. He tensed up. All the young man's clothes were stained with blood. Roland asks what happened. He will prepare a replacement suit immediately. But his lordship asks not to strain himself. He does not intend to appear in a proper form in front of someone who dared to interfere in his wife's personal life. The aristocrat's face darkened and sweat appeared on his face. At first, he tried to play dumb, saying that he didn't understand what they were talking about. But his lie was quickly exposed. Sistine already knew who had sent the photos. The man spent all his last money on this. There will be no other chance, and there is no turning back. Roland says that this is the only way he could expose Rebel Ivella. Everyone must know that the Archduchess, who should be the very embodiment of greatness, in the past led a dissolute life, spending her nights with commoners. His lordship's reaction was incomprehensible, but he chuckled. The man believes that they are obliged to believe him because the evidence was not only photographs, but also confirmation from his ex. Sistine gets up from his seat and asks if that's all he wanted to say. He sits here and tries to slander Rebel. If the Archduke continues to listen to this, he will no longer be able to answer for his actions. Roland doesn't understand what the problem is. He's just telling the truth. His Highness is becoming more and more irritated by this. The magic is getting out of control. The aristocrat asks to think about it. Rebel is dressed like a commoner and is wandering around God knows where. And it's closer to evening. What could this mean if not betrayal? The young man's eyes are filled with hatred again as he orders Roland Dillon to shut up. There is a huge explosion and debris flies everywhere. The estate was reduced to pieces, but the man remained unharmed. He didn't even immediately understand what had just happened. His lordship stood before him. He seemed wild, like a beast. But despite his anger, Sistine still retained his sanity. But if he dares to defile Rebel with his filthy mouth again? Did Roland really believe that he would believe him and not his wife? The Archduke warned that if he approached her again, the next time the fate of his estate would befall him too. The aristocrat fell to the floor from fear and helplessness. It was hard to believe that a person could destroy half a building with one blow. Roland is shaking all over and thinks he is a real monster. The events take place the next day. Rebel is going to attend a banquet to dispel the closed image of the Archduke's family. From the footsteps, it was clear that someone had returned to the estate. The manager confirmed that it must be his lordship. The main character immediately rushed to the door to meet her beloved, but the man was completely exhausted and literally collapsed onto her shoulder. Seal was there all this time. That was the only way he could return safely. The girl and the servants carried the young man to his chambers. A bright ray of sun fell on Sistine. He finally opened his eyes. Rebel is glad he woke up. It must be hard to fight monsters. She says that he returned in the morning and now the next day has arrived, which means he slept for about 20 hours. Sistina was very surprised by this figure. Was everything really that bad? But it seems to be true because he still feels tired. The girl had already read the news where her fiancé had caused a real stir. The articles were published very quickly, saying that half of Dillon's estate had been blown to smithereens. The deputy head of the investigators reported that the man went there because of her. Why didn't the Archduke say anything about the photographs earlier? But he didn't want Roland to disturb her in any way. Rebel thanks her, of course, but he personally intervened and even used magic. She would have found out anyway. The man didn't think about it, because all his thoughts were filled with revenge. After Sistine found out that the culprit was that bastard, all he wanted was to deal with him personally and as soon as possible. And he didn't want to use magic on purpose. It was an accident. The Archduke only wanted to issue a warning. This power should not be used against humans at all. It was for this reason that the man first went to his domain. By unleashing magic there, he thought he could control his emotions. However, with every word Dillon spoke, something seemed to boil up inside him. Sistine felt the mana overflowing him again, But it was too late and he had already destroyed half the mansion. However, the man was unable to control the magic because Roland insulted his fiancée. If he tells the truth, it will reveal the fact that he could become a monster. Many people could not come to terms with this fact and eventually left him. But Rebel is too important to him. He can't let this lady go. In that quiet life that he wants to protect, she has a special place. The young man did not make anything up and said that he would explain everything later. The events take place again at the Dillon estate. The father is furious. They have lost everything. When there is no more hope left, Roland remembers the invitation. He was promised everything his heart desired: power, honor, or glory. The main thing is to find the money. He is even ready to sell the estate if necessary. The father asks what he has in mind, but he only replies that he will figure it out himself. First, Roland needs to regain power and honor, and then the money will come. The young man arrived at his destination, the Rella Boutique. Inside, everything seems ordinary, an unremarkable place for aristocrats. Delana is met by a young blonde. She is happy to welcome the guest. It seems that the girl was waiting for this man and will gladly take him underground. The man was a little scared, but there was no other choice. He opens the door and begs fate to bring some luck into his miserable life. But luck and bad luck are two sides of the same coin, aren't they? There were a lot of people inside, all of them gambling. Roland was shocked. What? Is this really a regular casino? He clearly didn't expect this. How could he fall for this? Someone called his name and the frightened young man turned around. This was a man to whom he owed quite a large sum. Roland tries to justify himself. He didn't come to the casino because he has money, but the man takes him by the shoulders and replies that it's okay. He doesn't have to return anything at all. In exchange for helping the boy, the owner of this place did him a great favor. So we can consider them even. Better to continue the conversation elsewhere. The events take place in the Archduke's estate. It is already evening. It turns out that Roland caught Rebel red-handed, and Sistine, having learned about this, went straight to him and destroyed the estate. The main character is happy. One could say that she has become dear to this man. But if you remember, he said that when it comes to her revenge, it's his business too. The Archduke also mentioned that he did not release the magic on purpose. The girl feels that it is becoming increasingly difficult for him to control himself. If she wants to discuss this with him, she will have to approach the issue delicately. Rebel can only watch from the sidelines, but she so wants to help. It was time for the main character to go to tea. It distracted her from her thoughts. Before that, she changed her clothes and put on beautiful jewelry. Hylia emphasized that Her Majesty knows perfectly well how to decorate a girl's outstanding appearance. But recently, something has started to bother Rebel. She has been attending more and more events. The Archduchess often wears things given to her by the Empress, and therefore has attracted a lot of unnecessary attention. She's trying her best to get used to it, but something is unsettling to her. At this rate, all this will lead to anger, hatred, and suspicion of the Emperor. Hylia began to worry because it seemed that Her Grace was not feeling well, but the main character quickly pulled herself together. Sooner or later, they would stop paying so much attention to her. At tea, Her Highness's gifts were mentioned again, but Rebel's composure was 100%. A week later, at a banquet at the Marquis of Berlin, it dropped to 60%. These people always mention the Empress and praise her taste. 10 days later, the main character had almost no strength left. The girl came home and decided that she had enough of these gatherings. But if she stopped going to events, people would start talking nonsense. Sistine replies that this is just how high society is, and if she is tired, she can rest without any problems. Rebel thinks about spreading a rumor about her illness. A fairly simple way out of the situation. She also remembers the trip to his domain, but the man replies that he has a lot to do now. Next time. A little upset, the girl wished him good luck and was left alone. Things are relatively calm in the Empire these days, but Sistine still has a lot of work to do. Anything can happen. You could even say that something is bound to happen. So the main character should follow the events in the Empire. A good newspaper will definitely clear your head and help you unwind. But when she read the title, she was very surprised. Roland Dillon, whose end was just around the corner, is returning to his former glory. The events take place a month ago in the underground of Rella. Roland came here thinking that this was his last chance. But here he found an opportunity that only comes once. On his very first day here, not only was his huge debt forgiven, but he was also able to make friends with high-ranking aristocrats. There, everyone was equal. Aristocrats called a man family and were ready to lend a helping hand. Roland is happy. They really did return his money, power, and honor. After all, he made the right choice. Then a young brunette comes up and says that the gentleman is waiting for him. The man immediately starts to fuss. Does he really want to meet in person? The owner of a boutique, with whom only those he personally summons are allowed to meet. Roland had come to the boutique countless times, and now suddenly a personal meeting? An unknown person, who is the leader, greets Dylan. Seeing the gentleman's face, the man became very confused. He, of course, expected to meet an important person, but he did not assume that it would be the cousin of the current Archduke, Duke Pill. The aristocrat asks to relax. This is not their first conversation. Once Roland had settled himself comfortably, it was time for the long-delayed conversation. Dylan incurred the hatred of the Archduke and the entire imperial family. Pill does not intend to blame him for anything. Rather, on the contrary, to pity him. The young man had to go through so much, so the leader has an interesting proposition. Would Roland like to join him in order to overthrow the current government?